This is the GPL Podcast, part of the Pull Tab Sports family.
You know, a good recruiting tip is like, where can I get a good drink around here?
Eat that, Todd. Eat that, Todd. Eat that, Schloss. Eat that, Drew.
You know, it was good to see that the Big Ten Network recognizes how to cover hockey last
year. The over-under for this game, it's 7.
Over.
Which is a big number.
Hammer. Here's the hammer. Hammer the over.
Hammer the over. Now, here's Jupiter and Vigo. Good evening and welcome to the GPL Podcast, episode number 263. Vigs, hammer the over. Yeah, not so much.
Not so fast. You listen to me, you probably could have made some money on the game because I think that was the one way to make money as a Gopher fan was to bet the under. I kind of felt like this game, if Minnesota was playing well, it would be low scoring. Well, it turns out even if they don't play well, it was going to be low scoring.
Wow, yeah. Yeah, we'll get into more of that later. It's just going to be more of a fun episode since the Gophers aren't playing this week. But so if we're going to have some fun, we need to bring back somebody everybody knows, right, Vigs?
That's right. Tour de France champion.
Tour de France champion.
We got to open with a chirp, Nick. I mean, that's the way it works here.
Okay, well, let's bring him in. Nick Angell, former Gopher. There he is, Nick. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. I got the kids to bed. Hopefully we won't hear any screaming from upstairs, so I'll try not to raise my voice. Twin 5-year-olds.
That's a theme, though.
Rapper.
We've got a good theme with that because Vigs has been dealing with that for years on the podcast.
My kids are 9 and 11 now, so it's a little bit easier, but they're on spring break right now. So it's been a tough night in the Vigo household trying to get them to wind down. We're headed to Chicago tomorrow, so a big week for us ahead.
I was thinking you're not like podcasting from like Cooner or something, spring break, on the beach.
I did that earlier this season. Podcasted live from the Dominican. The show went pretty well. We didn't have really any glitches, did we, Vigs?
No, I mean, last year I podcasted from DC.
Yeah.
I mean, depending on how the Gophers do this year, I might be in Cabo for a podcast. We'll see how that goes.
Wow. Yeah. That you told me that last week, Vigs. I'm like, you're leaving the Friday of the Frozen Four?
Gotta do it. We'll see. We'll see if this team gets there, though.
Bold move, Cotton. We'll see if it plays out.
But what isn't it a part of like a wife business trip and you get
a little bit of a wife trip.
Cabo. So. Cabo's great, dude. You've never been to Cabo, have you?
Never been to Mexico. Quick getaway. So
never been to Mexico. Ooh.
Are you bringing the kids?
Nope, they get to stay here for a couple days.
Then it's a vacation. If you bring the kids, it's just a trip.
That's right.
That is true. Oh boy. Nick, we decided to have you on because, you're back in town. You played. What did you play? How much did you play in Europe? You played in Europe for quite a while, didn't you?
11 or 12 years. So it was kind of I think I was I was talking to Eric Wendell the other day, and I think I was one of the first guys to kind of go over there before it got really popular. 11, 12 years, mostly in Sweden, Germany, Russia.
Yeah, and so you've been back for a while. But, relatively a little while. And it seems like you and a couple of your former teammates kind of saw a void with the Gopher alumni. And you've been talking to me about this kind of the past year. You just wanted to get something together, get some kind of group a little more organized than you were in the past. And that's kind of what you've been doing with the Gopher Hockey Alumni org, haven't you?
Yeah. So last year, there was a ton of alums that went down to Tampa. Side note, if they had the Frozen Four in Tampa every single year, I would totally be fine with that. When they lost in overtime, I was decimated. I literally, both teams had left the ice after the ceremony, and I was still sitting in the chair because I was like, maybe they're going to call the goal off. Maybe it was offside. Maybe they had too many men. So I couldn't even get out of the chair. And I remember my wife was just kind of giving it to me a little bit. And she's like, it's not like you lost. I don't know why you're so worked up. Man, if you could just cut me a break for a second. But yeah, we had a lot of alumni down there, and
Yes,
it was kind of weird. We never had this like big group of like guys where we could like get together, have a meeting room. There was nothing really organized. And myself, Jordan Leopold, Eric Wendell, we were all playing golf, and we're like, we got to set something up. This is crazy. We all live in Minnesota or close to it, and majority of the guys do. And there's some great alumni organizations out there. You look at University of Michigan's got a really tight-knit group, and they have guys all over the country. So there's no reason that we shouldn't have something. So it was kind of setting up the website, getting the ball moving. And once we kind of just got the ball moving, everything has kind of come to place. So, if there's fans out there, they can go to Gopher Alumni, Gopher Hockey Alumni.org. And they can go to the front page. Most of it's private, but it's a pretty well done website. And it's kind of just started to get guys back and get them connected. And now we've got our own private forum, so we can kind of post and then also help each other out. If guys are looking for jobs, new kids that are coming out of college, they look for internships, mentorships. We're there to help them. And there's we'll bend over backwards and do whatever we can for them.
Well, I must say, Viggs and I have talked about this over the past couple of years that, for a while there, you didn't see much alumni around. It's, every once in a while somebody come in for some special occasion. But like you said, with the team last year, it was in Tampa. I mean, Rob Stauber and his wife were on the row right in front of me on the plane down. Viggs, who did you run into on a bench?
Well, I know that somebody ran into John Mayasich. It was
I
not
thought it was
me.
you. It wasn't.
It was
you?
not me, but I think that was Todd Molesky.
Oh,
He was taking the
forgot.
trolley
My
around.
mistake.
But he was there. I know he was with the team a lot. I think that was fun for everybody to kind of get parts of that history. It's always tricky. You want to balance, having the kids pay attention to their careers and their moments.
Mm-hmm.
But I think when they get introduced to people from the past, it can mean a little bit more. And they can hear some of the stories and maybe something for them to draw on. And I think that, Nick, your group is getting to that age where some guys have a little more free time. They don't have the 5-year-olds running around the house, and they're not going to the hockey rinks for mini mites and mite practices. They're starting to get a little bit older. But I think it's like that right time for this era of Gopher guys to get back together and start seeing each other again, from what I can tell.
Yeah, and I think there was an older group that tried to kind of get some things going just with some breakfast and stuff, but there was never really anything official. And one of the things we do now is we have a Gopher Hockey Alumni golf event where we sell some sponsorships. We make a little bit of money on it, and we just kind of keep it in the kitty, and we use it to fund just some simple events. So, wherever the Gophers are playing, we're talking that we'll probably have a watch party for the alumni, and it's great to get all the guys together and coke and joke because, as you mentioned, the whole program is bigger than any one player, and sometimes it just takes time to realize that. Like when I left, I wore number 26, and before that it was Godbout and Micheletti, and I'd see 26 jerseys rolling around, and after I was done, and none of them ever said Angel on the back. It was all Vanek jerseys. But you realize, the program is bigger than you, and you can give back to it. And one of the things that we've talked to Bob about is in the future, possibly going in to just talk to the players and say, listen, we're here for you as mentors. If you need anything, we have to play within the confines of the NCAA. But, if you need mentorships, internships, summer jobs, we should be a place that, you can reach out to us, because every guy in there, the M usually stays the same. The jersey colors and design might change a little bit. And just the nameplate is really the only thing that's different. You just rent that jersey while you're there. And your job is to, do your job and do as best you can for the community and for the program while you wear that jersey.
Well, it's definitely nice to see a lot of alumni around. I mean, a lot. I mean, I know you guys had tickets this season for a large group. Would you have like over 100 guys or 150 guys?
Yeah, we had over 100 guys, and that was one of the things that we used in our kitty, we were able to pay for those tickets for everybody, and they wanted to bring their families there. And the day I left Gopher Hockey, I signed up and had season tickets. So I've had season tickets for over 20 years. So now I've moved from like the crappiest spot to I'm right on the red line, top row. I always tell people, and you mentioned this, that I did a lot of the Tour de France, and I've still got a little baby fat from some of the fat camps I had to get in. But I tell people, listen, I had to run those damn stairs, and I will never go down those things again. So I want top row, right in the middle, seats 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's those are where my seats are.
Nothing wrong with that. I mean, yeah, but I was telling Viggs a couple weeks ago, I was just walking around and I ran into Brian LaFleur, a defenseman kind of before your time, old neighbor. I had never seen him at Mariucci in the 30 years I had been going. And I just ran into him, an old neighbor friend. And it's things like that. And you guys have you got a small little alumni room downstairs. It's not big, but whenever you guys are there, that's where I see a lot of guys in there. I mean, they're just packed in there with their families. They're BSing. They're not getting bothered maybe by fans. They can go down there and just sit back and watch it on the TV if they want, rip on the team, and nobody hears you rip on the team when they do something bad. I mean,
we just honestly, we more rip on each other. It's like who's gotten fatter, like who's been the least successful of anybody there. It's kind of more just like, coking and joking with the guys. And I bring my little 5-year-olds down there, and we have access to that shooting room. And my kids love just going in there and shooting. They get to grab the big kid sticks. There's a couple sets of gloves in there, and they can kind of just shoot pucks in there. And I mean, we miss most of the game usually because they're in there shooting. And hey, if they're having fun and dad can watch the game on the TV, it's kind of a win for everybody. So,
and Viggs, there's been a lot of changes there, haven't there? I mean, compared to when Nick was there, the whole locker room's done. They got this, nice little alumni area. It's quite a bit nicer than it was before Viggs.
And a lot of that's been done by alumni to give back to the program. I think one unique thing about Minnesota is they've leaned heavily on their alums to put those upgrades in place. And for a long time, Minnesota was falling behind with North Dakota and Wisconsin and even St. Cloud in their team areas. And so for Minnesota to catch up and have a little bit more success recruiting, they had to make those changes, and alums made that possible for a lot of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when you go down there, you're a little jealous about some of the stuff they've got down there now.
Oh, I thought when I first got recruited there, I thought this is the most unreal place I've ever seen. And now I see what these guys have, and I think, man, it looks like a total dump. Like what we had, like it was so bad compared to what they have. But at the time, I thought we had, amazing facilities. I remember going on my official visit. My mom and dad are there. We're walking through the arena, and like my parents are from small towns in Western Minnesota, and they were just like astounded of the facilities that we had at that time. And now, you fast forward, and it looks pretty demure to what they have right now. And you look at the players' room that they have with the couches, the Game Boys, the bubble hockey. I mean, I think we had a ping pong table one summer, and we thought that was the best thing ever. And I mean, we played ping pong on it like maybe once or twice, maybe a little more beer pong than we should. But, but I mean, now these guys have everything there, and you look at like the nutrition that they're able to get too, where before we were just eating the normal, like general student food dining, have some pancakes and some pasta. It was kind of
campus pizza.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Campus pizza, lots of campus pizza. But now, I mean, it's the way that they have their nutrition dialed in, the physical fitness, the facilities, the shooting, the opportunities that they have are incredible, but it's an arms race. It's if somebody's got a 10-person hot tub, it's like, well, then the next university needs to get a 12-person and a cold tub and a infrared sauna and a steam sauna and it's just an arms race across the board. So I'm glad I think they did a really good job in that when they built Mariucci, they added a lot of extra space, and that they could kind of fill out that space as they needed.
Well, Viggs, we've heard that something like Grand Forks, they have a hyperbaric room they can go in and kind of work out to adapt to, like going to
Denver and CC. Yeah, because they want to get ready to go to Denver and CC. So they've got that room where they can acclimate in there and spend time and work out in there. So when they go on these road trips at the NCHC, they don't have to worry about the altitude quite as much. Nick, when you were playing in Europe, did you come back at all during the summers?
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of guys that skate at the rink during the summer and train a little bit too.
Yeah. So every year, usually the season in Europe is 8 to 9 months, kind of depends on how long you have. And then I'd always come home for 3 or 4 months in the summer. I'd usually take 1 month off of just kind of relaxing. And then it was like the 2 months of getting back after it. And, I know now they have the beauty league, and that seems to, draw pretty good attendance, but we had a beauty league before. We just never charged for attendance. It was guys from, a bunch of different programs. We had UND guys, St. Cloud guys, and everybody would just leave their gear at the rink. We'd tip out the equipment managers at the end of the year, and they'd wash our gear. We left it hang there. Guys would work out. So we had that, but we just never, kind of commercialized it, and we're raising money for charity. In fact, when I would talk to people and they say, "Oh, I love the Gophers and I love, watching pro hockey." So, geez, why don't you just bring your kids down to Mariucci at 10 o'clock, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and you're going to get to watch some really great players. Your kids are going to be able to get autographs from, there's Thomas Vaneks out there. There's Leopolds, there's Paul Martins. We had some really good players that are skating every single summer. And it was a great skate because, when you're playing pro and you want to just pay $5 and go get your hockey on at the local, open skate, you find out that there's some guys out there. It's like that hate their job. They hate their life. They hate their wife and kids. And they find out you played somewhere and, they're playing like it's game 7. And then you're going to catch an elbow in the corner and you're going to want to beat the guy's wheels off him. It's like playing against Napoleon Dynamite's uncle, like Uncle Rico. Like, I'll throw that football over the moon, It's like, so this was a great opportunity for all the guys because, hey, we just want to get a good drip out there. We want to get better. Nobody wants to get injured. So it was, it was a great skate at a good intense pace where everybody could get something out of it and tempers weren't flaring. So that was kind of what we did in the summer.
On a lake of ice.
Yeah. But we did play on both Mariucci and Ritter as well. So we would skate. I always like playing on the big ice because in Europe, it's 200 by 100.
Mm-hmm.
But all the North American guys wanted to get on the 200 by 85. So,
what do you think about the changes at Mariucci this season? They've gone down to what, 87 feet? I think Viggs 89 and a half. 89 feet.
89.
Yeah, I think it's great for the program. I can totally understand. Like if I'm a lawyer, how they're saying, okay, we want to have 200 by 100 because that's going to have more creativity, and, but then I can take the other side of it and say, hey, we're really training these guys to take the next step. And I think that's something that's really changed between my years. And I think I was kind of more in a traditional or transitional time period from like Woog to Lucia. So like when Woog was recruiting, like everybody just wanted to wear the M. Right. And then it started changing. I think you had, St. Cloud State coming in, Mankato, Bemidji, more competition. So I think the way you recruited players was just a little bit different. And the way you treat players and the way that they wanted to be treated and what their goals were. So for me, I just wanted to wear the M. That was it. But then you started seeing more guys start to turn pro. Right. And now where you look at the lineup and it's like, which one of these guys is not going to turn pro? It's kind of wild, right? So, I think that, when we had the big ice, we were maybe losing some recruits. Some of the agents and the family advisors were saying, listen, hey, go up to UMD, go to North Dakota, go to Mankato. They're going to help develop you to the next level, right? So I think moving that rink to a smaller size takes that argument right off the table and just say, listen, the University of Minnesota has amazing facilities. The ice is going to be conducive to you taking that next step, which is really what I think a lot of the players that are coming into the program these days are looking for. These guys are looking to make the next step. It's not, hey, I grew up every single day thinking about being a Gopher hockey player. And a lot of them do, but I think they have future aspirations once they leave the program.
Definitely, they definitely do. That's why I appreciate the changes this year. It's given me more room as a photographer along the glass, so I kind of like it. So, but we need to get a little bit into the game of the game this weekend. But first, Viggs, we need to talk about one of our sponsors, and that is Will Anderson.
That's right. Close your eyes and think of your insurance agent, someone you used to know decades ago, friend of a friend. Now ask yourself, what has your insurance person done for you lately? Are they saving you money? Will they answer your call? Reach out to our sponsor, Will Anderson Insurance. He'll insure you the same as his own family, and he'll explain it to you so that it makes sense. And while he can't promise he'll save you money, let's just say you should sure get a quote. And he covers stupidity. That's great. And he's a Gopher guy. Call 612-361-7283 or visit willandersonagency.com.
Of course, he's a former Gopher, but we also need to talk about the Yoakum Real Estate Group, Viggs.
Yeah, it's getting to be springtime here, and that's the market for buying or selling a house. So if you're going in the market, don't roll the dice on your biggest asset. Think twice and contact the twins, Sarah and Jody at Yoakum Real Estate. If they stand side by side, their wingspan is bigger than that other guy who buys way too many billboards. Visit yoakumrealestategroup.com for more info.
All right, Viggs. We're kind of joking at the beginning, hammer the over, big game against Michigan, a lot of goals scored. Didn't really turn out that way, and it was kind of more along the lines what you thought.
Well, I feel like Michigan sees Minnesota as that opponent where they have to rise to the challenge, and it brings out their actual best hockey. All of a sudden, Michigan doesn't turn the puck over in the neutral zone. All of a sudden, they start getting pucks deep. All of a sudden, they start, forechecking and being on top of guys in the right position to be that second man in. When you play that man and a half forecheck, if that first guy's there, that second guy's got to be there too to jump the pucks, and they were able to do that to Minnesota. And they beat Minnesota in the faceoff circle pretty soundly. So you had the Gophers who were kind of on their heels all game, and it really took them a long time to get out of it, really until the last 5 minutes of the game. You just saw they weren't able to get to the middle of the ice. They probably extended their shifts too long chasing offense, and they just never really took control of the game when it mattered.
Nick, what is the deal with Gophers and faceoffs? Back in your day, you could literally throw Johnny Pohl out there, and he's going to win 60, 70% of the faceoffs. We've been seeing a trend over the past 5-10 years where the Gophers just have not been doing well in these faceoffs. And it's not just, the regular faceoffs. It's the faceoffs when they're starting a power play or when they're killing a power play that they're losing. And it's really starting to hurt them.
I mean, I wish I had the magic answer to that. Just the pill. Oh yeah. No, you got to work on this in the practice, and it's just going to fix itself. I think obviously faceoffs are reactionary, but I also think your line mates have to be helping you out a ton, right? Like if you're having a tough day in the faceoff slot, and hey, I was a defenseman, so I mean, I think I took professionally like 3 faceoffs, and that was like on a 5-on-3 back when they used to kick the center out, and they were like, "Who wants to take it?" And I would go in and I would literally just say, "Hey, listen, help me out here." And you just try, if you're having a tough day in the face-off, guy's got your number, he's got a different technique than you got to rely on your wingmates to help you and say, "Listen, I'm going to just tie this guy up, and I'm going to try to scrum it up, and we're going to kick it back." And, I don't know what exact system they're running. I haven't watched it like intensely. It's something that maybe I'll watch the next game. But I think face-offs just aren't about the centerman. I think your wingmen help you out a ton there as well.
Well, I know the coaching staff often talks about like that face-off intensity. Like you have to be ready to jump and help. And especially now when you have so many defensemen in the defensive zone who cover that wall guy and come back for pucks to the middle, they have to be active at helping get pucks won and wheel it behind the net. And you just saw Minnesota too many times. They weren't able to get to that puck first, and Michigan was just ready to go. And I think it's just one of those weekends where Minnesota thought it was going to be maybe a little bit easier, and they didn't have that intensity. And, Justin Close probably wants that first goal back. It's kind of that soft shot from distance that he mishandles. It comes right to the front. Michigan player beats the check to the net. It's 1-0. Gophers probably got lucky to have that second goal overturned on the offsides. I always want inconclusive evidence on the video review. That was pretty close. The camera angle is not straight down the blue line, and they still got the call. So they got some chances to get back in the game. It just never came their way again.
And I also think faceoffs, like if your team wins faceoffs, it's a pretty good determiner of how the game's going to go, because you think about like what a faceoff is. That is one-on-one. It is an intimate, quick experience where it's just you and I, and who's going to win this right off the bat. And if you're kicking the crap out of somebody all day on the faceoff circle, that gives you more motivation and intensity to keep kicking the crap out of that guy in the boards, and in the corners and in the tough areas. And it's probably one of the most intimate times where it's just a one-on-one outside of a shootout, where it's just you and I, who's going to win it. And if you're losing it, that's when you got to rely on your wingmates to jump in and help you out a little bit.
And I do think Michigan did a good job after winning draws. They maintained a little possession. So the Gophers always had to work that first 30, 40 seconds of their shift. And I think one of the problems during the game was the Gopher players out there wanted to get some offense at the end of that shift. So they've already been out there 40 seconds defending, and they want to go play offense. But now because they're tired, they're late. And so you'd like to see Minnesota try to find a way to get a regroup, get a new group out there with possession, and then go on the attack. And that's been an issue, I think, with the Gophers this year sometimes, is they're chasing that offense a little bit. We've talked a little bit about it with the more Snuggerud Pitlick line. They can have some long shifts, and I think that Michigan game was definitely one where that happened.
So now they get an extra week off, Vigs, something they haven't had in quite a few years. Michigan goes on. They're going to be playing at Michigan State. Obviously, Michigan State has done nothing really in the Big Ten until they kind of started pushing last year, and now they're at the top this year. What do you think happens between those two teams on Saturday night?
I think if Michigan plays the way they did against Minnesota, they're going to be in pretty good shape and probably should be the favorites in this game. Michigan State hasn't played great down the stretch this last month or so. They had to deal with the bye week and the rust going into their game last weekend, and it was a tight game. And so you have a team that's never really been through this before and is all first experiences for them. Whereas you have Michigan, they probably want regionals to be played at Mariucci the way they've played there the last 3 years. I mean, they're humming at the right time. I think Gavin Brindley, probably the best player in the Big Ten, should be a Hobie finalist, but he's not for some reason.
Yeah, that's kind of weird.
I really like his game. I like Rucker McGroarty. Seamus Casey, also a great player, and I think Michigan's got some pretty good depth. They just have to play the right way. So I think if anyone's looking out there for value, probably Michigan.
Who knows? I mean, how much is this going to affect the pairwise for Minnesota? They're kind of at the mercy where they can't really, cause themselves to move up without other teams making mistakes. So they're kind of stuck right now, aren't they? Just a wait and see.
It feels like they're locked in at 8. There are some scenarios where they drop to 9, but as Bob says, the difference between 2 and 3 is you're just wearing a different colored jersey, especially if you're around 8, 9, 10. So they're going to be playing the same teams anyway. It'll be interesting to see how the seedings work out, because we've got a lot of teams from the Big Ten probably in there, a lot of big teams from Hockey East, and a lot from NCHC.
I have to ask you, Nick, what are your thoughts on the college hockey scene since you've been gone? I mean, seriously. I mean, we've gone from a WCHA that was holy cow, lights out, to, we've got more teams now. We got more teams in Minnesota. We got St. Thomas, we got Augustana. We got all these new leagues. It's kind of crazy, and it's taken a while for any of it to really kind of take hold, especially here in Minnesota.
Yeah, I think the Big Ten is starting to catch on. I was not a big fan. I mean, we're Minnesota people, so that that just kind of means we think East Coast people are, West Coast people are weird, and trust East Coast people, you know. So like we kind of just liked our little central area that we had with all the great teams here in Minnesota and Wisconsin and North Dakota. And then, you know, hey, we take the trips out to Denver and CC and an occasional trip out to Tech and Alaska. And that was an amazing conference. I understand the economics of why they did that. You know, and I think it certainly affected the fan base. You know, if you look at what happened to Mariucci, you know, some people said it was the netting that they put up, but I mean, I don't really think that has much to do with it. I mean, it was always fun to see if, you know, people could catch a 90-mile-an-hour deflected slap shot up in, you know, section 22. But, you know, I liked the WCHA. I thought, you know, having those border battles every single weekend was something that gave us a distinct advantage that, hey, we played in front of full houses every single night. And that was one of the nice things about playing at the U is we always played in front of full house. I've helped a young kid, Carl Falk, get to St. Cloud. He was a transfer from Alaska. And I told him, I was like, oh, you're going to love St. Cloud. It's a great arena. It's always packed. And I went up there and watched a couple games, and it's not always packed. I had just only been there when they were playing the Gophers. So I just assumed like every game was like that. But, you know, I do think the Big Ten is starting to catch on. It's great to see the attendance. It's great to see the students come back, because for a while it was kind of sad. Like, yeah. I mean, I would turn on the TV and it was just, you could just see blotches of 20 and 30 packed seats that were empty. I was like, man, when we played the international teams, when we play like Vålerenga or some team from Sweden or Germany that would come over, we would still have way more fans than what that was like. And, you know, 3 years ago, they played North Dakota, and I know the players were just like, wow, this was awesome. And I kind of thought it was like 95% full. I was like, man, there were still some empty seats there. Mm-hmm. You should have seen it when it was really rocking, when that happened every single weekend. And, you know, I think a lot had to do with the Wild. The Wild have come in and they've kind of upped their production value. Yeah. You know, I work in a corporate area now, and it's like, okay, if I could do a suite, I could roughly pay the same to do a suite with the Gophers, or I can do a suite with the Wild. And you look at like the food and beverage for clients and stuff, they've kind of upgraded their entertainment dollar. But I think Mariucci now is starting to catch up and realize they had to do some changes. So, you know, financially and athletically, I think the Big Ten is starting to make a lot more sense to people now that you're starting to see that fan base come back.
I actually think for rivalries, it's been good that Minnesota has lost 3 straight to Michigan on Mariucci ice, because that's what makes a rivalry. I've always loved the Michigan rivalry going back to, you know, the 90s and the college hockey showcase with them and Michigan State. They were always great games. And you had, you know, obviously the Mike Legg goal, the history behind it. And other people weren't as excited. They're like, this is not North Dakota. This is not Wisconsin. I'm like, for me, the Michigan rivalry has always been up there with Wisconsin and North Dakota.
I don't know if losing to them in the playoffs is helping the rivalry for me.
You got to lose to have a rivalry. You got to have some back and forth.
Yeah, you do got to lose to have a rivalry. That's true. But I think what makes Michigan so fun to see Minnesota play against is the high-end draft picks. You know, when you see the Fantillis, when you see, Brindley, when you see McGroarty, when you see Hughes out there for the other team, I think that really raises the eyes on that series. And you always know Michigan's going to have a good team. And part of that's being in the P4. You know, we don't even have the Pac-12 anymore now. We just have 4 conferences, and the Big Ten's one of them. And as much as people miss the old days of the WCHA, you know, they still were playing Tech in Anchorage and CC and Denver. You know, they still had those games on their schedule. You know, in the Big Ten, every team is going to be competitive. Every team has a $5 million plus budget to spend on their hockey program. So you're going to have that high quality. There's a reason players want to transfer into Big Ten schools, because they get to fly on chartered planes everywhere and have catered meals and stay at nice hotels. You know, those are all the kind of things that make the people in Naples wary about giving too many advantages to the schools by hiring 4th and 5th assistant coaches, or having unlimited scholarships, or having NIL come into college hockey. It's the fear of programs like the Big Ten, and that really separates it. I don't think we'll ever have anything like the WCHA Final Five again, but the students who are packing half the rink weren't going to that. So we've seen that kind of turnover in fan base. And I think that's what makes Minnesota special, is when you have all those students in the building. And we've seen these games against Michigan where the student section bleeds out from their usual 3 into maybe 5 sections. And that just adds an incredible atmosphere. In the last couple of years, these students coming out of COVID have made Huntington Bank Stadium special. And they've made 3M Arena at Mary G special.
Yeah, that first Big Ten championship game against Michigan, Nick, when they had 5 student sections, basically that whole third of the end, I had never seen anything like that in all the years of the new Mariucci Arena.
Yeah, I was at that. It was rocking. That was an amazing game. I mean, for what it was, like the atmosphere was good. I didn't really like the result, but no, I do think like it is so huge that the student section is part of it for us. And, as a player, a lot of times we say, we don't really hear the fans. And when you're on the ice, a lot of times you don't. I can always say the times I heard the fans the most were when I was on the bench and on the power play. It's a 5-on-3, you're trying to work the puck around, and you got the guy that like had, played Sega 98. And you can just hear shoot, and you got 10,000 people who just hear shoot, and you almost just kind of like tighten up. It's like, hey, this is not 1998 Sega, with Cam Neely and the Bruins here. Like we're gonna work this thing around. Give me a second here. But it is awesome when the fans are there and you start to feel that energy and that excitement. The only time I would say it was better for me as a player outside of watching that Michigan game was the national championship game at the XL. That was when you feel the sound. And I will say, actually, one of the funniest things, here's not a bad story, and I hope Mr. O'Leary doesn't give me any hassle about this, but I remember I was a senior, and guys are a little nervous, right? I mean, it's 20,000 fans at the X national championship. You're on your home ice, and they did the national anthem. Guys are kind of sitting there. We're getting ready to drop the puck. They're doing like a TV timeout. And I remember Mike Gensel looked down the bench and said, "Hey, O'Leary." And Pat's a big guy, 6'3", 220. And he's a senior. And he said, "Hey, Pat, let's get out there and get that first collegiate hit, huh?" And I will never, and guys just cracked up. And it was such a great moment. And Gensel was so good about like, he could kind of give you like a little bit of crap, but it was just such a good moment because it just loosened everybody else up. And, then we went on to play the game and win the game, but it was just kind of a fun moment. And it popped into my head just thinking about fun atmospheres.
I bet you Pat's not a fan of that though.
No. And you know what? And it probably wasn't a fair comment, and everybody knew that. Pat was a high-end draft choice, and he got put in a role that he probably wasn't recruited for, and he worked and he took that role. And it's guys like that took roles that, hey, when you're a 3rd or 4th round, I think he was 2nd, 3rd, or 4th rounder, and he took a tough role and just played tough every single day. And that's the reason that you win national championship. And you have guys that will take different roles and play different positions and do whatever they can do to win. That's kind of when you win national championships. So taking nothing away from Pat, and everybody knew it was kind of a BS line from Genner, but it was funny.
It loosened you up though. It loosened you up. It kind of just takes a little weight off your shoulders because, obviously you're Minnesota. You're on home ice essentially for the national championship, and 95% of the fans are cheering for you. That's pressure. This is, I mean, Vigs. It's not like you got a big series. This is one and done. This is over. This is literally Game 7 of the Stanley Cup final.
And it's hard to replicate that. And Motzko always talks about this group. They've been through back-to-back Frozen Fours. They know what to expect and what it takes to get there. It's just now these guys are in different roles. and they're in those higher pressure situations, and it takes a little bit of learning to prepare yourself for those. I think Pat would probably admit that experience probably shaped him better as a coach than if he had been a scoring line player, because I've heard lots of guys from Wayzata come out of there go, he knows his stuff, and we play a tough style that a lot of teams struggle to play against because he's been through that and he knows the sacrifice you have to make as a player to win.
Yeah, exactly. So that's, even though it's a joke on Pat, but and I'm not trying to cover my own buns here, but like it's guys like that were the reason. It was funny because we had our 20-year national championship reunion. All the guys, we went up and went golfing up north, had a couple of days of good fun up there. And, talking with Jordan Leopold and Paul Martin and Keith Ballard and Johnny. And, we were all sitting around the campfire having a couple of beers, just talking. And they even said, and these were our star players, just saying, hey, it was guys like you, Pat, that took a role and played that role to the utmost and did it better than anybody else in the country. And that's the reason you win championships, because every team has great players, and those great players are going to make great plays and score a ton of points and get a ton of goals. But you need, it's not 5 men on the team. It's, you've got your whole team that has to contribute.
Well, I want to get into some more stories.
I can already feel my phone is vibrating here. I'm sure a bunch of the alums are giving me. I'm gonna hear about it. Oh, you're saying too many nice things about it. We gotta.
We can throw them all under the bus later.
Well, because our group is so tight. We're on a group text, and I'm just looking at my phone vibrating and lighting up here. I don't even want to read what they're saying. But it's. We kind of just give each other a bunch of hassle all the time. And that's why I said, hey, when we're down in the players lounge right now, everybody's just joking around with each other and giving each other hassle.
And, that's essentially what we did that entire, pickup game we did a couple of years ago with you, because you had skated with us after the national championship. You and Roby came out, skated with us Rubes. We had a blast of a time, quite a few times. And then we had a 20th anniversary of it, and you came out a couple of years ago. And the entire time on the ice, it's not even about the hockey. It's about giving each other crap and just having fun. And if you're not having fun, why do it at all? And I love that Gens just took that little bit. He knew it was going to be fun. He knew it was going to be a joke. And that's what you kind of need, just relax and have fun.
I'm trying to remember one of the guys, because, I was going to try to get Chad to come out and just kind of relive that exact thing where we skated 20 years right after the national championship. He was up in Duluth, couldn't make it down. And I'm trying to remember, I think it was Keith that texted me, and because I said, I was like, hey, maybe I can get Wendell. And, Keith knew a bunch of the guys. And so we'd always kind of like joke a little bit. I was like, oh, I think I get Wendell. And his reply was, oh yeah, the guys would love it if she could make it out. And I just thought that was like the funniest damn thing ever. I texted Eric that right off the bat.
We have Jack Ramsey on the podcast. He's been on 3 or 4 times, and he has no shame in saying his sister is way better than he was.
Chrissy Wendell hit me harder than I think I've ever been hit. It was in a no-check league, and she cut my legs right out from under me, and I just went ass over tea kettle. And I still tell Eric about that. And, Eric lives just down the road from me, so we see each other quite a bit and still skate together every once in a while.
Well, I do have a good memory of actually you and Keith in one of those hockey games where he thought, because Keith is pretty fast. He thought he could just go right around you. And I recall you pretty much just kind of picking him up and just kind of tossing him off to the side. I believe it happened at the Bloomington Ice Garden. That was a good memory for me because it was good to see Keith get just.
I don't know if well, he's a little stronger than he was back in the day. He was a bit wiry, and now I think he's been pumping some iron.
He's been doing cross training for many years, and
he puts in the work.
I think when the last time I saw him was at that skate, and I was like, holy Christ, when's the last time you had a carb? Speaking of that, I'm going to have one right now.
Yeah. And you know what? While you're doing that, we still need to hear from more of our sponsors.
Jake Middleton here, Director of Hair and Hygiene for the Minnesota Wild. How did I get this important role with the team, you ask? I'd like to think it was because of hard work, but the truth is, I run hot. Yep, I'm a sweater. In my role as Director of Hair and Hygiene, I'm sort of like a player coach. Let me pull out the grease board here. Well, it's not actually a grease board, because there is nothing dirty about Duke Cannon. How do I help the guys stay squeaky clean? Helpful reminders. It's simple. Tarps off, Duke Cannon on. Say it with me. Tarps off, Duke Cannon on. Tarps off, Duke Cannon on. Pick the scent that suits you. Sawtooth. Thick body wash. Extra thick. And my favorite, Midnight Swim. Tarps off, Duke Cannon on. Duke Cannon. Work harder, smell better.
Guys, we got to thank Duke Cannon for being a sponsor of the GPL podcast and Vigs. If you haven't seen it, people need to get out and look at the Pull Tab Sports social feeds of the Jake Middleton outtakes of that exact commercial. Very entertaining.
It's amazing they were able to get enough of a segment together to keep it clean, because there might be nothing greasy about Duke Cannon, but Middleton's a greaser.
But we also have to talk about one of our favorite places, though, Vigs, Cub Foods.
Cub, you think Cub, you think local, they think sports. They sponsor Pull Tab Sports. They sponsor the Wild on 7th Pod, Homer Hankies on PJ Flex headset. Whenever the Gophers have one of these promotions with like Red Barons or Thousand Hills, you can go to Cub and they'll have it, and they support us. So visit your local Cub. They're all over. There's the one probably pretty close to you. They've got all your food and beverage needs, great produce, fresh milk. Everything's going to be in stock. Pickup, delivery. They got you at cub.com. And if you need some drinks, maybe you need a Duck Duck beer, maybe you're looking for a THC beverage, there's a lot of Cub wine and spirit stores around now too.
All right. And of course, we thank Cub for being a sponsor of the GPL podcast. Bring back Nick here. I wanted to talk about something we've talked with both Shearhorn and Ramsey about what it's like to be at a school when the coach changes. And you had this exact thing happen. You had a freshman year under the Booger. The Booger recruited you. Obviously, we all love the Booger. I mean, my gosh, the guy is a legend. But, at that time, it was time for a change. And how was that for your class?
I mean, I think it was really difficult, right? You come to a university, and as much as you buy the university when you sign on, you're also buying the coach, everything that they've talked to you, they've promised you. And, just speaking for myself, coming from Duluth, I kind of grew up a UMD Bulldog fan. My parents had season tickets, and I like watching Brett Hall and like these amazing players and Chris Marinucci, and I was a huge UMD Bulldog fan. And I could tell you what, every time the Gophers came to town, there was like a special excitement in the building where, you could just feel it as you walk through the skywalk going into the old deck. And, people were excited. Some people were just running to get to their seats. I was like, man, that's pretty awesome. I want to go to that school. Like, there's nothing against you. I used to go to the UMD hockey camps in the summer and everything, but that was pretty awesome. And then you see there's Coach Woog sitting in my parents' living room, offering you a scholarship. There's no way you're not going to say yes to that. So, I went because I love the school. I wanted to go to a D1 school with a D1 program that, had D1 academics, the tutoring support, everything, the facilities. So that was important to me, but really you sign with the coach. And, Don came from CC. CC was one of the schools in the WCHA that did not recruit me. So, I had no relationship with Don right off the bat. And I think we all had to earn our scholarships back, even though they can't really technically cut scholarships. They kind of can, but there's some ways around it. But I think we all had to re-earn our place and our trust with the coaching staff. And it was great that Genzel stayed on, because I think he was kind of the one piece of the coaching staff that kind of stayed consistent. And, he could kind of convey what was, promised to us, the way they saw us as players, as people. But it took some time, people always ask me, what I thought of Doug. And I said, geez, Doug was awesome. Like, he was a guy that I'd love to have a beer with. In fact, he used to go to Stub and Herbs after the game and bub cigarettes for my mom back when you could still smoke in the bar. So like, he'd always be looking for my mom. Hey, Erna, I know you got those Marb Reds. So he'd always, like, he never had a pack of cigarettes on him himself, but my mom always had a couple extra smokes for Doug at the bar after the game. So just an amazing person, right? Where, like, complete opposite with Don. Don was I think he's a great person, but like, as a coach, he wasn't like that friendly, warm, fuzzy kind of guy you'd joke around with. And I've told people, I said, listen, we won the national championship my senior year, and I don't think we were the best team in college hockey, but I think we were the best coach team. So, maybe Don wasn't a guy I wanted to go grab a beer with after the game, but if you asked me who I wanted to have be my coach, I would say Don. So, I think we earned his respect and he earned ours.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Nick,
but, go ahead.
What were some of the biggest style changes that happened? What changed in the coaching?
Yeah. I mean, I think, when we touched on it earlier, when I said, hey, the kids had changed, right? So like, where our class, we just wanted to wear the M, right? And then you started to get guys that were like, okay, this is a stepping stone. So the way you recruit those kids, and also like, when Doug first started as a coach, there really wasn't a Mankato. St. Cloud State really wasn't, an option.
Just getting started, yep.
UMD was kind of like a second alternative. There was North Dakota, but like, when there's more schools offering scholarships, it's a lot different, right? And how you allocate your scholarships, and do you just try to get 18 full scholarship guys and then get like 7 or 8 guys that'll walk on and come for free, or do you give 10 scholarships and then try to break up the other one? So I think the way you recruit is completely different. But yeah, it was an interesting time period. And especially we had, the one thing that really sticks out to me is we had kind of a scandal within the University of Minnesota athletic department with the basketball team and the cheating scandal that was going on there. And I remember I was so proud. I got my first year letter, and once you get a letter, you can get your letterman's coat. And I was so proud of that, because I had seen, being a little kid in Duluth, you'd see these guys coming in with these big maroon coats with the big yellow, big gold M on there. And then I got one of those, and I remember I was at the Mall of America, and somebody just walked by me and said, "Cheater." I was like, I've never cheated. It was such a a visceral thing for me, where I was like, wow, that wasn't me. I'm part of the athletic department, but that was kind of the basketball team there. And I think Jan Gangelhoff was the tutor that was doing everybody's homework for her. I was like, I've never even met that gal, so, what was the question that you asked? Sorry, I went off on a tangent there.
Just like the style that changed. I know when you got to college, not many guys played junior. Everybody who played for Minnesota was from Minnesota. And then, you had Grant come in as a non-Minnesotan. You had Vanek coming in, Austria, and you had guys who had spent time in the USHL before going to college. It seemed like a big transition for Minnesota.
Yeah. And, when Doug was playing, somebody once said, like, I don't think they could check in the offensive zone, and guys had straight sticks. And, the style had just changed so much for those guys. And, I think Don came in and changed things up and made it completely different, where I can remember in the national championship game, we had 3 different forward checks, and we would switch it on a dime, where it was like, okay, how are they breaking out? Are they just going D to D and hitting the wall? Okay, we're going to go from a 1-1-2 to a weak side lock. That way, when they go D to D, we're going to have that weak side locked, and we're going to force them to make the pass up the middle, and we're going to have our D step. So like we could move very quickly from different forward checks, and how we attacked off face-off wins and face-off losses. So I think bringing in that systemized style of play, we never got a playbook. It wasn't like the NFL where they, hey, you get a playbook, and then if you get cut, they had to take your playbook. But we really watched a lot of video, And I think that made us better players. Video was pretty tough back in the day. You'd have your
That's
Friday.
because everyone had video on you guys because you were always on TV too.
Yeah, but you'd watch, we'd have our Thursday video night, and, it would be a little bit about the team you're playing, their power play, some of their top players, tendencies, traits, etc. And then you'd play the game on Friday, and Saturday morning always sucked for video because, hockey's a game of mistakes, right? And, you knew you'd made one, you could play a great game and you knew you made one or two mistakes. And it was an equal opportunity out there to take guys apart. And Genner always did it in a great way, but you knew you were going to get lit up on Saturday video for sure. And you just, like, if you made a bad pass in the second period and gave up a grade A scoring chance, you just dreaded that portion of the video that was coming because you knew you were going to get the highlight reel. And I mean, I think I cried one time. I got ripped on so bad, like not when I was a freshman either. Like when I was a senior, it was tough, but it was great because it held us accountable. And, and I think I remember the play. It was in Wisconsin, and I just got eviscerated by the coaching staff for the way I played a 2-on-1. And I will remember it to this day. I will never play a 2-on-1 the way I played that, and that was an accountability piece. And, so not just the tactics, but you were really held accountable. When Doug was the coach, and like I said, I love Wooger, the seniors kind of ran the show and they could kind of get away with anything. And a lot of that changed where everybody was held accountable, whether you were a freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, equipment manager. If you didn't have the guy's skate sharpened or didn't do a quick turnaround, if a guy blew a lace, like those guys were held accountable. And I think it made our program better.
It's funny. I was talking to Mason Nevers once this year about what film was like on Saturday. And he's like, Saturday's the coach's day. It's like they own that day, and it's a tough, long video session. If we didn't play well on Friday night, everybody's going to know what they did, and it's going to be a different night Saturday night.
Yeah, we actually talked about for our 20-year national championship, because we never had a post-game breakdown after the national championship game. And we had said, we're like, hey, we got to get Genner that tape. And we just want him to be a savage with all of us and just put together. And we just thought it would be great. We never got it done, but I always thought it would just be hilarious to get Genzel to kind of do our Saturday post-game or Sunday morning post-game breakdown from the Saturday night national championship game, and just see what he said about the guys. Because now it would actually kind of be funny. You would like look forward to the point you got taken apart. But
how did they get a wide open net on a power play? What the hell?
Oh yeah. I'm sure he would, I mentioned Pat O'Leary. I'm sure he'd give Eric Wendell some hassle. If you remember, we had a delayed penalty, Maine had a delayed penalty, and the Maine goalie thought it was on us and left the ice, and Eric came up the ice and didn't see that the goal was completely empty and cross corner dumped it. So I would have loved to see what Genner had to say about that one.
Oh boy, that could have been, yeah. Like you said, you can still do it.
Yeah, I got to track down Genner and Wardo. It's kind of a name from the past.
Oh yes.
I recommend hanging out at Stone Ridge Golf Course during the summer. I'm sure you'll see Genner there. Right. Shooting his low 70s.
You got any more for the recorded part of the podcast here, Viggs, for Mr. Angell?
Well, I just appreciate you coming on. We love having the alums come on and get their perspective of what's going on with the program. What do you think is going to happen here in the next couple of weeks with this group, from what you can tell?
I think guys have kind of been talking. The Penn State game was a little like rough, right? I mean, if you just looked at the shots and then you looked at Michigan, and sometimes, and maybe this is just me, more of like a glass half full kind of guy, it's just like, sometimes you need a wake up call, right? Mm-hmm. And, I think the way they played was not amazing, right? There was not a lot of hustle, not a lot of grit and jam and compete out there. And, you could see it out there, and that's maybe just kind of my old school, maybe I'm not politically correct and giving everybody a trophy these days, but, it wasn't a great effort. It wasn't a great team effort. And I think, sometimes when you have that wake up call, it says, hey, we need to play collectively much better. Our compete level needs to increase. And it's better to figure that out now than it is in a couple weeks. So, wherever they get seated, whether it's 7, 8, 9, 10, I looked on Twitter, I saw your predictions, Jupe. So we'll see where they land and, where the regional is that they go. But whatever happens, I expect their compete level to be, much higher. And that's, really all you can ask for is, hey, are these guys giving us 100%? Are they going out? Are they competing? Or, hopefully, it doesn't look like guys have already signed deals and they're ready to go. But I think they're going to come out and they're going to come play real hard. And I think it's going to be I don't think anybody's really like focusing on them or saying like, oh, hey, that's really the team to beat. I think, that's more on the North Dakota and the Boston teams, and I think Minnesota could be a pretty good sleeper because they certainly have the talent. And, if you use this as a bit of a wake up call moving forward, it could be a catalyst for good things to come.
Can you stay with us for a little bit of overtime here, Nick?
I've got an extra beer here. I'm good to go.
That's what we like to hear. Well, thanks for coming on the show, though. I mean, we're gonna have to get you on multiple times now.
I'm happy to come on. It's I'm the fans don't know this, but I did text Jupe. I said, hey, I'm having a blast doing this. So.
Well, we're glad that we had you on, and of course, thank you for coming on with us. That will do it for this episode of the GPL podcast. We'll be back next week to preview the NCAA tournament and see where all this is going to go. For those of you watching live, stay tuned for that overtime. For the rest of you, we'll catch you next week on the GPL podcast. You're muted, Biggs. We got to have it unmuted here.
I usually unmute, but this one is a tough one. It's a steel toe, but it's got wax on top.
So
that's a little hard for me to get to today. We'll get there eventually.
This is a 10 milligram THC drink no, I'm just kidding. No, it's a good old Minnesota Gold Lager.
Yeah, we saw that in the chat.
All right. Here we go.
What is the beer of the week? Show us.
So this is before the dawn. So part of me was thinking this last little stretch here by the Gophers might be before the dawn of when they show their best hockey and win 4 in a row. We'll see what happens. But this is a dark one. It's a black barley wine aged in rye whiskey barrels from the most underrated brewery in Minnesota. No free ads. Steel Toe Brewing. Cheers.
Cheers to you, Biggs. Man, that does look dark.
Yeah.
That's like
really good.
Just like eating a loaf of rye bread.
That's what Shearhorn says.
That's exactly what
he sees my beers. He's like, you're just drinking a loaf of bread. And I'm like, yeah, that's how I'm an offensive lineman. I like to do it that way. So
I like beer that tastes like water. So that's
this is not water. It's delicious though.
We've had a lot of people say, why don't you have the current players on? Why don't you have the current players? Because the current players are trained way too well in media. Yeah. They're going to give you a couple things here and there and be a nice little thing. But we have found over the years that it's players like you that come on after your playing days, and you could just kind of be free of all that BS that you have to protect the school from.
Yeah, I mean, we had media training, and I remember like it was ABCs. I can't talk about that, but I can tell you that I still remember that from like our crazy media training days. So, I just trying to go out there and do my best and work really hard, and hopefully it all works out. They're all like those canned answers. So.
Well, you've been saying, Viggs, that's one of Brodzinski's favorite things to do. He was told To do what?
Just come out and repeat what the coaching staff said to the team after a loss, because they usually have Bryce come out and break it down for the media, and he just that's what Bob said, but he doesn't say it like that. He just repeats it. He's like, well, we got to be better on faceoffs, and we got to be on time in the forecheck, and we've got to string some shifts together. That's exactly what he comes out and says in the post game, and it's one way to do it.
Yeah, that would be a very PG version of probably what was said. In fact, my kids actually, the school we go to, we mentioned Wardo. I was going in for parent teacher conferences, and like one of the ladies that worked at the school, and she looked at my last name. She goes, "Oh, my brother, it's Coach Ward." And I just said, "Holy cow, what a small world." I said, "Let me tell you, Coach Ward put together some of the most motivationally profane speeches I've ever heard in my entire life." I mean, I actually heard like the F word as like a verb, an adjective, a noun, like pronoun. Like it was like
it is a very versatile word.
Oh yeah.
You kind of told me via text a nice little story that you had on your recruiting day when you were kind of, being led around Mariucci. I'll let you kind of tell it about kind of seeing the Wooger that day.
So, my recruiting visit was like, they knew I wanted to be a Gopher, right? I mean, hey, they gave me a scholarship, but they would have given me nothing. I would have said, hey, I'll take a loan out. I want to be here. Like, and so Genzer's walking me around the campus. My parents are there. My mom and dad are down, and we get towards the end of the tour, and then you're going to go meet Doug, which is exciting because like he'd been in our front living, or he hadn't been in our front living room yet, but this was just kind of the official visit for it. And he said, yeah, he's just in the office. He's waiting for you. So I super excited, and I like bust in the door. I knock, nobody answers. And then I bust in the door. He is laying on his couch in his whitey tighties with like the Star Tribune or the Pioneer Press just over his head, sleeping in his dirty whitey tighties on the couch. And he kind of gets up, like, oh, give me a second. And then Genner sees it, and he's like, oh, hey, just give him a second. Puts his clothes on, and like I said, this was early in my recruiting visit, but they still knew I wanted to come there in my whole like recruiting time. And he looked at me and he goes, well, and he kind of looks at his watch. He goes, and he looks down at the paper, it's got because they had all the kids coming in to get recruited. And he goes, well, Nick, you're a forward, right? Like, nope, D. Like, but I mean, like Doug, I don't think anybody like looks down on Doug for that. It was awesome. Like, and I've told his son that because his son works in the same business I do. And, I say, hey, let me tell you my recruiting visit. And I loved it. I mean, like it was awesome.
What year was that? Was that like your junior year or senior year?
Probably like 97. I think because I was already committed before my senior year. So like junior, kind of maybe after my junior year, I kind of forget when it was. Like, I didn't even have email then. I think you waited for a letter to show up in the mail.
Yep.
Were you like Doug? Didn't you watch the high school tournament? Did you make it to the end of that one?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, Wooger was the best. Like, I mean, awesome guy. And in fact, when he was going downhill there, our whole senior class went and saw him, when he was kind of in his home there. And like, I will say, like, Pat O'Leary, we talked about him earlier. He did such a great job with Doug, and like, kind of like, cause it was hard. Like he was trying to remember like who we were and, like, but like once the the engine kind of fired up, and he was going, and we started telling stories, and it was a great moment, actually, because this is a guy that, hey, we only had him for 1 year, but he's the guy that brought us to the University of Minnesota, and every one of us now bleeds maroon and gold, and we love the university, we love the program, and we loved him as a human being and as a coach. He's an amazing person.
Yeah, and the thing is, he went into the TV booth. And he just literally, by going into the TV booth, Viggs, that's where he kind of became the legend, for everyone else.
Well, because I remember at the end of his coaching career, he was getting it from everywhere for not being able to win and for being so stubborn to what he was doing and not adjusting as the game was changing. And it was just like they just beat him down and beat him down and beat him down. And then he gets on TV every Friday and Saturday night. And it's like, man, I hope I run into that guy at Stubborn Herbs. I want to have a beer with that guy. I love him. He's Minnesota hockey. He's one of us. And, it just totally flips a switch with that connection that people made. And, he connected with so many fans.
Yeah, it's so easy to just say, oh, they're not winning. The coach isn't doing well. Like, oh, he sucks and he's a bad person. Like, Doug Woog is an amazing human being. He's missed by so many.
Definitely. I've got a picture of him here that I've got framed.
Making me like emotional just thinking about it. Actually.
Well, yeah, but this was taken at Sugar's in Grand Forks. After a series where they had won up there, I think it must have been mid 2000s up there. They had just won up there. And I was up there with a friend. And so we got to get a picture with the Woogers. I got a picture of the Wooger. I've got it. Obviously, I got it framed now. It's great. But he knew we had a digital camera. And he ran into some old buddies at Sugar, a bunch of old guys. So my friend Jen says, yeah, I'll take a picture of you guys. And she goes over and she takes a picture of him and his group, and she's going to send it to him, email it, whatever. And she kind of looks at the coach. She goes, hey, look, Wooger, you got a couple inches on those guys. Because, obviously Wooger's not a very tall guy. And right off the bat, Wooger's like, he pokes his buddies in the arm, says, she didn't say where I got a couple inches. And that was the Wooger right there.
Yeah, he was the best. We talk about going up to Grand Rapids, Grand Forks. We're playing UND, and these beers are kicking in. Two of them. Whew.
Yeah, I have been hammered on this podcast.
Oh yeah, no, but we're up playing UND, and I have it, and I have to dig it out. It's in like some of my my college stuff, and I saw Tone Loke was up there playing. So like the Funky Cold Medina.
Yeah.
The guy that was in was a couple movies he was in with. But anyway, so I get an autograph. I was like, hey, can you sign this? And he's like, yeah. Who do you want me to sign it to? I was like, to Doug Woog. So I had him sign it because he was at our hotel. I was like, hey, Tone Loke, will you sign this? It's to Doug, go Gophers, GOFERS, Tone Loke 2000. And I gave it to him, and he kind of looked at me. He's like, what the hell do I want that for? So I still have it. I found it when we were moving the other day or a couple of years ago. So yeah, go Gophers, GOFERS, Tone Loke 2000.
Oh my goodness.
Have you done any road trips as alums? Like, no, I know Pat's organized, like he does like the first football game or something in the fall where all you guys get together and have too many beers and
we've
walk about.
We've gotten together for a couple road trips that have gotten off the rails a little bit. I haven't been on all of them, but I've been on some of them. And, Jordan's got an RV that he drives, and it's literally like the Griswolds go on vacation, Jordan is just duct taping the shit out of everything, on that RV, like that thing, it looks like it's just all duct tape. So like I said, our group has been an amazing group. And one of the things that probably hurt me the most when the guys lost last year wasn't that, hey, it's not that we don't have another trophy, to put in the case or whatever, a bunch of guys having rings. It was, when you win a championship together, you're almost kind of immortal, and that group of friendship will stay no matter what. And when you lose and you don't win, that you don't have that kind of common bond. So I wanted those guys to win for them more than I wanted it for anything else, because it had been 22, 21 years. It's kind of like, it's time, right? Like, we hadn't won since, we won in 2002 and it was 1979.
Yeah.
And then they won the next year, which, this show is like when I first left the U, I was like, oh damn, they won the next year too. Like, I kind of wanted to like keep the number of national championship rings to a minimum, but now you kind of grow, it's like, it's a selfish thing, right? When you first leave, you don't realize, that you're part of such an amazing program. And now it's like, man, I want them to win every single year. But that's part of growing up. But I was decimated when they lost. God.
And like I said, there were so many alumni. There were so many people in Tampa that were Gopher fans. It was 75, 80% Gopher fans in that building. I had been in 2012 to the Frozen Four in Tampa. It was not that many Minnesota fans there that time. But last year, it was just amazing.
Yeah, and all the alums that came, we didn't have anything. And like, the University of Minnesota Athletic Department, they've got their hands full with a lot of stuff that they're doing. And I think a lot of the alums expected the athletic department to kind of like book some stuff and have there's a saying like once on scholarship, always on scholarship. And, that's maybe a mentality, but it's not the way that it really is. Like when you leave the university, like your time is done, but there's no reason that we can't put together an amazing group and, keep that. And, moving forward now, like, with what we have with the alumni, everybody has the same amount of scholarships, and everybody's, especially in the Big Ten, the guys who recruit, they've all got nice ranks and, fancy jerseys and private jets and all that stuff. And when you're sitting with mom and dad, talking to the coach, and they say, hey, listen, I know that another school is giving you a full scholarship and we only have 50% or 75% or whatever it is, but we can't match the full scholarship. But what we do have is we have an alumni group of hundreds of successful business individuals that are waiting for your son the day he graduates to make sure he's successful. That is a hell of a feather in your hat that I think Bob is starting to realize, like, wow, I could really leverage this group, because there's not a lot of other organizations out there that have that. And, let's face it, like, everybody has the full scholarship, but we can't give a full scholarship to everybody. But being able to get guys that, will take a lesser role and have a longer vision of what they want to do with their career and their lives, I think that we can help them do that. And I think being able to do that I've kind of talked about that vision to a lot of the alumni, has helped alumni kind of come back to the program, because once they left, they just kind of left the program. And it's like, no, you're still part of this amazing tradition. And this is a great way for us to give back to the program and make sure that it still continues. So, if you're in marketing or sales or finance or whatever it is, being able to give back to that program and help kids and get the best recruits and get kids that'll, take less money to come to the University of Minnesota, where, St. Cloud State might give them 100% and we're only going to give them 50. But you have that extra, arrow in your quiver, hopefully that helps. So,
and Viggs, I've kind of talked about this over the years. There haven't been many alumni around. I didn't think it helps the program much, but now you are seeing them. You'll see somebody like Nick at the game, or, we run into Carmen at the game, or, I saw Bill Baker sitting in one of those nice, comfy corner seats earlier in the season when Bill Baker was here. Maybe not everyone knows who Bill Baker is. Some of the youngsters might not know him, but Us older guys definitely know who Bill Baker is, and that's a cool thing to see.
And I think it's, you're always recruiting your own roster too, especially with the portal and guys looking out for their own future. And I think if you build that bond with the current team, it can help make them feel more invested. I kind of think back to like a guy like Jack LaFontaine, who signed an NHL deal in the middle of the year, probably tarnishes his connection to Minnesota forever. And maybe if he has that connection to something bigger than just this team and just that chance to play a game in the NHL, maybe he thinks differently about that decision, because I bet he thinks about it differently now. But you want those guys thinking about that earlier in their careers and what it means to play at a place and have that connection, have that camaraderie. I know, totally different thing, but like when I played at St. Olaf for football, they brought in a speaker every Friday after practice to talk to the team for like 5 or 10 minutes and just talk about their experience playing and what it means to them in their career and going forward and the connection with their teammates in the school back then. I think any coach that doesn't tap into that at least a little bit is missing out, because they're so focused on what they're doing currently that they miss that CEO perspective on program building and culture building. And bringing in a group like yours, Nick, is so impactful, I think, for players.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, as we've kind of built out this alumni group, it's kind of been our like 02 national championship team that kind of started this. But we're very cognizant of saying, like, listen, we need to have some younger guys. We need to have some older guys that represent kind of all of the different generations that played in the different eras and genres, to make sure that we're well represented across the board. And, for a lot of the guys that left the program, after their time was done, there is some like animosity, of like, hey, we never had anything. And like, it was a competitive program, right? And, guys competed for jobs, and, so that was one of the big hurdles that we had was, what's an alumni? Is it somebody that played one game, one season, like scored a goal? What's an alumni, right? Because there's a lot of, and what we ended up coming up with, and I think it's the right decision. We talked with like damn near hundreds of alumni and said, what do you think of this idea? And, some guys said, well, I think you need to have at least played one game. And, we kind of like pushed back on that and said, okay, well, what about the guy that never played a game, that showed up to the rink every single day, was on the practice PK, got slappers ripped off his ankles every single day so that our team could be better and have a similar PK experience? Did that guy give to the program? Yeah, I guess he kind of did. So basically our arbiter of, are you an alumni or are you not? It's not if you wore a letter or anything like that or got in the team photo. It's, are you on Elite Prospects or Hockey DB and doesn't say University of Minnesota next to your name? Because, like with some of the older guys where they had the JV team, right? Like, because now we got 40, 50 guys per year. So really the arbiter for us is, are you on Elite Prospects or Hockey DB and does it say University of Minnesota? That way, nobody's mad at Nick Angell or Jordan Leopold or Paul Martin, who are on the board of directors of the alumni, saying, oh, this guy is or isn't. It's like, hey, take it up with Hockey DB or Elite Prospects. That's on you. Like you deal with that. So that's kind of our arbiter that we came up with for it.
Yeah.
I remember reading this article. It was about Sven Nader, who was the backup to Bill Walton at UCLA. And when Bill Walton decided to come back, it basically meant that he was not ever going to play a significant role for the UCLA Bruins. Even though he was a great player, he just was never going to see the court. And they talked about how his teammates are like, without him as part of the team and practicing with us, we would not have been nearly as good, because that guy didn't leave. He didn't go somewhere else to play. He stayed and helped us get better. And you don't have successful teams unless you have guys like that in your program who support everybody and have good attitudes, are ready to present, the scout team. So for a hockey team, putting together a scout power play or scout penalty kill and giving you a legit good look helps you get better.
Oh, absolutely.
You don't have great teams that, if you have a team that can't practice well because the bottom guys of your roster, skill-wise or talent-wise, aren't giving their effort or attention, you're not going to be good.
Yeah. I mean, look at, I'll use Chad Roberg because, fellow Duluth East guy, he was a year younger than I was. So it was our first year. Woog had just left. Chad was graduating senior at Duluth East, and he called me and was like, "Hey, can I walk on the team? I want to come." I said, "Shit, I love to have you, man. I don't know. I mean, you're not that good of a player, but you're the hardest working guy on the ice." And, he talked to Lucia, and Lucia said, "Hey, come on out." Right. And Chad Roberg, so he was there for 3 years with me. So his freshman, sophomore, junior year, which was my sophomore, junior, senior year. Then we won a national championship. And he said to me, "Nick, hey, we just won the national championship. I'm a junior. I've played like 2 games. I go and I go to the rink. I wear the green jersey. I basically get my ass handed to me every single day. I'm done, man. I am done. Like, why don't I just retire on top, like be done with this on top?" And I said, "Hey, Chad, you're right. Hardest working guy every single day." He didn't miss a practice in 3 years, not for sickness, not for injury, nothing. Didn't miss a practice. And I said to him, I was like, "Listen, Chad, you never took a day off for the last 3 years. And people know you get 4 years of eligibility. And, your last game as a Gopher will probably be your last competitive game. Like, it just is what it is. You're going to have to put on your resume. People are going to look and say, 'Hey, I played 3 years at the University of Minnesota.' People are going to ask you why you didn't play a 4th. And you're going to have to tell them you quit. So finish it out. You came here, you walked on. Nobody's given more effort than you have. Finish out your 4 years." And then he won another national championship. The little shit's got 2 rings. I only got 1. So,
I remember one of those years. All us rubes got him on the Hobie vote because we all just kept voting for him, and he got to be part of an extra list of Hobie finalists, the bigger list, because all of us guys were voting for him. Deegs, do you remember that?
Yeah, because it was back when things weren't as organized for the internet voting, and it wasn't a thing yet, really. And this was kind of new. So the Gophers obviously have a huge fan base compared to a lot of other schools. So you could just get that support and pile it on. And I definitely remember that being fan favorite. Minnesota seemed to have a lot of those during that era. I remember hockey had it, basketball had it, football had it. Fans would get behind the guys like that. I think
they had I think it was like the Chad Roberg fan club, and they have T-shirts made and everything. And it was my first year pro, and I think he played against the U.S. national junior team, and he scored a goal. And I can still, I wasn't there, but I watched the highlight, and he went, got the puck, came in right side, scored 5-hole, and the whole bench mobbed him, and he struck up the band. It was, awesome.
The student section started yelling Hobie Baker.
Yeah. And
they did when he scored.
His first game that he ever played. Do you know where he played?
Where?
Ralph Engelstedt Arena, the old barn. The old barn. I got goosebumps, just thinking about it. He was like, "Hey, Ange, man, I'm really excited." He was so jammed up to go. And back then, they let the first, couple thousand fans into the arena, and you come in, you're on the bus, and you just start hearing whap, whap. Those are beer bottles going off your bus, right? So you had to go grab your shit off the bus quick. Otherwise you're going to take a beer bottle off the head and run into the rink. Right. And that's 2.5 hours before the game. And then I think it's 2 hours before the game, they let the fans in. Right. And it's the free tickets for all these guys. And there's not a lot to do up there. So that everybody's there, and they've been drinking, sitting outside for a couple hours. So they get in, and we were underneath, like the locker room was underneath like their student section. And you could just, this is 2 hours before the game, you could just hear like, dun, 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 F the Gophers, dun, dun, dun. Like, I mean, that was his first college game as a walk-on, recruited nowhere. I think he was recruited to Harvard, and it was more for the academic side. And they said, hey, you could probably make the team if if we really, but you know what? The guy showed up every single day, and he's got 2 national championships, and nobody's ever going to take that away from him. And probably one of the hardest working individuals I've ever met in my entire life. And he was the best man at my wedding, side note.
There you go. And Vigo and I played D-League hockey up at the Super Rink. And Roby was one of our subs one of those seasons, and he did play with us a few times.
Did he score?
Duh.
Okay, good.
Score a couple and then just start passing the puck around and
pretty much
being a good guy.
No, so Chad, actually, when I was in Europe, I had a bunch of I'd always get a couple flight tickets. They'd say, hey, we're going to give you 5 flight tickets. Well, I only need 1, so my parents weren't going to come over that year. So I ended up flying like 4 of my buddies. And Chad was one of the guys that came over and visited when I was playing the Swedish Elite League. And we just had a blast. But it was funny because he doesn't have like a real like broad like palate as far as what he eats. And he was a little worried of like, what is he going to eat in Europe? So he brought like 20 packages of like Jack's Link's beef jerky. He had a blast there, and we had some fun, and he came over to Sweden, and then he and his girlfriend at the time and now his wife came over to Germany, and we hit some of the beer gardens and did some of the travel and stuff there. It was amazing guy, great Gopher, great human.
I was sad he couldn't make it that skate, a couple of years ago, because he was all lined up and then he had to back out last minute. But
I was bummed too. He's an elite level dad right now.
Gosh, yes.
And he really, and I mean this in the positive, like he prioritizes his kids, and like he does such an amazing job with his kiddos. It's kind of like inspirational and aspirational with what a good dad he is. Like if you're ever wondering like what I should do with my kiddos, and I was like, well, what would Chad do, kind of thing. Like
I see it constantly on Facebook. I see it all the time. All the fundraisers he's behind, kids stuff. It's just crazy.
So Vigo, I got to ask you. I got like a couple of my buddies have written books about being in the KHL. If you've ever, I don't know if you guys have ever read some of like King of Russia is Dave King. He wrote about his time coaching there. Like he coached Malkin in the KHL. And then Bernd Bruckler was a goalie at Wisconsin. So he was
I remember that. Guy. Yep.
I knew Bernd pretty well. He wrote a book, This is Russia. We actually kind of joked that Russia was so bad that all the import players, like you would see crazy shit going on all the time. And you would almost want to cry about it or complain about it, but we all just said, TIR, this is Russia. Like you kind of just laughed about it, right? And he named his book, This is Russia. So maybe I need a ghostwriter. I saw you're freelancing every once in a while. So, hey, we can get together and have a couple beers, tell some stories, and whip together a book.
This sounds like a promising idea.
Yeah,
I'm on board with this. I think
I would be down. I mean, it's just beers and a recording. Is probably all we need. Yeah, there's some good stories in there. I'm happy to go into that, or you want to stick to the.
You could write a book just on Gensel stories.
Here's a
pretty narrow. Jupe, you're trying to narrow audience.
No, I know. Russia, but I mean, there's enough material for this.
I'm getting warm here. I got to take out.
There's this much book material just of Gensel stories, I'm guessing.
Well, I mean, when Genner kind of like left and then came back, like he was, so popular with the alums, right? Because he's a Gopher guy. He understood what it meant to wear the M, and Don came in, and there was some like, and this is, I mean, while I was playing, but from what I've heard and what we kind of felt was like there was some like animosity that, hey, we didn't have a Gopher guy as a coach, and I think Don kind of like just never dealt with that really. He just was like, whatever, I'm just not even going to talk to the alums. And I think that pissed off a lot of people. But I think that's one thing that Bob did that was so amazing. When he first came in, he said, listen, hey, like I wasn't an M Club guy. Like he goes, I wanted to be. I got cut twice by Brad Butow. So like, he kind of tackled that elephant in the room like really
right away.
Well.
And that first conference, that first news conference he did.
He did a great job with that. And that, I think that really kind of like ingratiated himself into the program before. And he'd been a coach here before. And when he was the coach there, he was kind of like the third assistant, the guy you just kind of coke and joke. If you were having a tough day, you could chat with. And, he was kind of like the players coach. I think things have, changed a little bit now that you're the head coach. I think you almost have to kind of keep that like Chinese wall up of like separation between like, letting them see too much, but yeah, there's a ton of good Genner stories. So when he left, all of the alums, we got together, and Timmy Cortez, who's a Gopher Hockey alumni, and he makes some of those like lithographs or paintings and stuff, kind of like a Terry Redlin type. And if you ever go to like, it's like timcortez.com or Tim Cortez Art or something, he does some amazing work. We had a piece put together that kind of looks like this picture. If I can.
Yeah, I can do it here. I can do this.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. So it kind of looks like something like that, right? That he put together for Genner. And we gave that to him as alumni. And it was a picture of him playing and a picture of him coaching. And then just kind of like a profile picture of him just as a thank you for everything that he's done for Gopher hockey. And as much of a tough ass as Genner is, like he kind of got a little teary when we gave that to him, because I think, as fellow alums, we appreciated what he's given to the program, both as a player and a coach.
Well, I think Genner kind of was under the mindset that he was going to be the next coach.
Yeah.
After Woog. And just because there was a shakeup in the AD at the time, and that promise doesn't carry over from one AD to the next, and it wasn't a great time for Gopher hockey at that moment, and so the new AD decided to go a different direction, and I think he was pretty sour about the whole deal. And then,
and I mean,
again, with Bob getting hired, Genner was a candidate for the position, and again, it was just a circumstance of the time.
Yeah. And the alums, we loved him as player. Like we hated the video breakdown, but he was like an equal opportunity offender, right? Like it didn't matter if it was Jordan Leopold or Nick Angell, like he would top to bottom. Like if you screwed up, he was going to let you know, and he was going to do it in the most like hilarious way possible. Right. Like I mentioned the Pat O'Leary story, right? Like, I mean, do you think Pat finished his check on that guy in the first shift that he got? Of course he did, right? So like, but it was what we needed, right? Like it loosened us up, but it also like kind of held you accountable to make sure like, hey, like it's go time right now. And, like I said, I'll never play a 2-on-1 the way I played it in Wisconsin and a Friday night, because I was literally crying Saturday morning when he took me to town on it.
I think one of the kind of little stories you sent me a little bit to Sal, we have Jordan Leopold out there for a reason. Pass him the effing puck.
Oh yeah. So like, literally my first shift, like I pick up the puck. I got one guy coming. I see I could make a D-to-D pass, and I just kind of like deked around the guy and then hit the center, came back. And I was like, okay, first shift as a Gopher, check that box, didn't turn the puck over, broke the puck out, get your ass off the ice. It was like a 20-second shift. And I come back to the bench and I'm feeling pretty good. And you hop over, I'm not winded or anything. I just like, and I remember he said to me, and can I use what the words?
Yeah, you can.
He goes,
of course
Angell,
you can.
We got you out there with fucking Leopold for a reason. Give it to a skill guy. All right, cool. Awesome to be here. Like, that was literally like, he just had some of like the best one-liners ever out there. I mean, he loved Gopher hockey. So like if we had an injury and there was like a guy that was, wearing a red jersey or a white jersey with a red cross on it, like no contact, or somebody went down during practice, he was jumping into that line to fill that position. And he would finish his check on you. He would put you into row 8 if you didn't have your shit tied together. Like he was going hard. Like it was, like, hey, Thursday practice, which tends to be like a lighter skate, like he would finish you hard and like in the corner. Like it
was he the kind of guy who would wink at you after the hit, or was he like really into it? Where he's
and he'd be like, Angie, you been hit like that before? Like, I mean, it was like he would beat you too. Like, but no gear whatsoever. Like, guy would go down we'd be killing, we'd be power play, have 5-on-4s out there. Some guy would take a slapper off the ankle and we didn't have a guy to jump in. He'd get in there with like no gear on, like going down on one knee to like block shots. Like he just loved the program, right? Like, or he had no pain.
Can't show pain. Can't show it.
Like, oh my God. Like, and he'd take it, like even when you're like, guys are pretty good with their sticks, controlling them, especially when a guy's not wearing shin pads. But I mean, I'm sure there's a couple times he took a couple off the shins and he just skated through it and, long. I mean, I remember I took a slapper off the ankle, killing a penalty, and came back and he goes, and I was kind of limping and he looked at me and goes, long way from the heart, rub some fucking dirt on it. Like that was it. Like, I was like, okay. His one-liners were off the chart. Like it was.
Did he give you a hard time being an East kid, a cake eater of the North?
Oh. Nah, well, firstly, we were both 2-1-8ers. So even though like, I mean, hey, Duluth East is the cake eater. It's like, you think about cake eaters of like Edina. It's like, okay, if you're the cake eater in Duluth East, you're like, your dad might have been a shift manager at the plant, where like in Edina, the guy's dad owned the plant. So it was a big difference. But
because I know Lucia would kind of, put the knife in, Grand Rapids, Greenway, back and forth, saying, no, true Iron Range, huh? Okay.
Oh yeah. I don't know if Duluth is even considered the Iron Range. But I think what Genzo respected was hard work. And, hey, I wasn't a real skilled player. But I worked pretty hard. I finished a lot of checks. I took the role that was given to me, similar to Pat. I remember I used to watch Mike Crowley rolling around there in number 20 doing great loops. And I think, man, that could be me. And then I went in and I skated with all these guys because you think you're pretty good when you come out of high school. And then you go to captain's practice and you're like, man, I really hope I can make the top 60 here. So I quickly moved from, I can't wait to run the power play to, man, let's just hope my name's on that board when I show up to the rink, because my parents are driving down and I don't know if I'm playing or not.
Good name though. See, I'm a Jefferson guy, so Crowley's my guy. He will always be my guy.
Crowley and Treble and
Crowley.
I didn't know you were a Jefferson guy.
Like, yeah, I didn't. It's not like I played hockey there, but yeah,
he was in the band.
I thought you were kind of more like.
I would have great videos of Jupe playing the drums.
There's video of high school Channel 4 during the 1989 state hockey tournament.
Oh, they had the clear boards. Sick.
Yep.
Yeah, I never got to play with the clear boards, but interesting fact, I did play in the last game that was played at the St. Paul Civic Center.
Really?
Yeah, in the 1998 state championship game. So that ice has been good to me there, whether it was the Civic Center or the XL Energy Center.
My son is reading back Dave Levac's Tourney Time book right now.
Yeah.
He just absolutely loves the story of the third place game after that long OT game where there's the meeting with the officials before the third place, and one of the East captains goes, do all the goals that go in the net count today?
Yeah. Yeah, it was. We had a good run at Duluth East. There, I think it was Dylan Mills that might have said that. So fellow Gopher guy. He's back up in Duluth right now as I think he works as a firefighter.
Really?
We had a good run with Duluth East guys. We had Dylan Mills. We had obviously Spihar, myself, Chad Rober, Chris Locker came for a little while. Didn't stay long, but hey, he got a game in. He's on the alum, so I think actually, like, talking about Duluth, that every time when you get recruited, like, normally you just call the coach and say, hey, I'm not gonna go there. I'm going somewhere else. No, okay, thanks for your time. Appreciate it. Best of luck. Right. And I knew Surdich pretty well because I'd grown up going to all the UMD hockey camps. And I think he was under a ton of pressure to get these Duluth kids. And I was kind of one of the last guys that didn't go there. And I went up to his office to tell him face to face that I wasn't going to come there, which I thought was like, I'm 17 years old. I'm making the toughest decision of my life. I thought it was like kind of a quality person thing to do. Now, I've played in the KHL where, like, Soviet style coaches that stand in front of you in the box, like, they don't stand behind you. They stand in front of you so they can scream in your face. And I have never been talked to the way Surdich, like, talked to me. He crushed me. You son of a bitch, you suck. Like, we didn't even want you. And everything. Like, I mean, for 45 minutes, I sat in that office and just took it. 17-year-old kid making the toughest decision of my life. And Glenn Kulik, the assistant coach, finally popped his head in and just said, hey, Nick, thanks for coming in. Appreciate it. And he got me out of there and kind of like gave me a pat on the way. Because you could see I was just in shambles. Like, I ended up buying a car from him. He was selling cars up in Duluth. I'm still grateful. Like, a couple of years later, I ended up buying a car from him.
Thanks for saving me that one time. I hope you get a good commission on this.
I bought a Mazda Protege wagon, like a hatchback wagon. Like, I mean, like, not the most stylish car ever. I ended up buying that car from him because I was so indebted to him for getting me out of that office. But yeah, and then we had Surdy and I had some words because he went to Michigan Tech, and I was still not his favorite player when he was coaching at Michigan Tech when I was playing at the U. And I said some words to him, and he kind of like tried to grab me on the ice as a coach. It's just stuff that never happens now, right? Like, can you imagine if a coach was like trying to grab another player, like, and physically get a hold of him? Like, the stuff just doesn't happen anymore. I kind of wish it would, though. Like,
maybe in Russia, it happens all the time, and we just don't hear about it.
Well, speaking of guys grabbing you when you're coming off the ice, I played against Chris Simon, kind of to take a weird turn right now. And, the North American guys, we all kind of knew each other. It was, these teams are owned by these Russian oligarchs of mining and manufacturing. And, you're getting paid more than you would if you were in the NHL. So it's kind of a great opportunity. And he was on, like, his whole line had changed. And he was coming into our zone, and it was like a 1-on-3, and he cut to the middle, and I caught him with his head down, and it was probably one of my hardest hits ever. It just lit him up, like yard sale. He had to go grab his stick, and then we pick up the puck, and it's a controlled breakout behind the net, and I pick up the puck. My D-man changes, and Chris is at the front of the net just screaming at me, whichever way you go, I'm going to kill you. I am going to take you right out. Like, I'm going to end your career. And I'm kind of sitting back now, because this he's a big boy, right? He was like 6'3", 6'4", 220, and with a high intensity level, right? When the wires touched, like, the game was over, right? So, and I'm thinking, I'm like, how in the hell am I going to, like, there's like still like 40 seconds left. Like, I just can't maybe it's a minute or something. Like, I can't like wait for this period to get over here. So,
and if it does, then he's going to know where to get you to.
I'm sitting like behind the net. He's sitting right in front of our goalie and screaming at me. And I know, like, my days are numbered here. So I looked, I was like, okay, our bench is off to the left side. I faked, what did I? Faked left. He kind of, not really, like it was a bad faked left. And then I kind of came out on the right side, passed to the right, and he started coming after me. And as soon as I knew he was coming after me, I was like, okay, I can use the net as a shield. So I started going back out the left side, went right to our bench. He's not even chasing the puck. He's coming right after me. I'm skating as hard as I possibly can to our bench. I dove into our bench like I was head first, like I was stealing second base, like head first. Now he's got me by the back of my skates. He's got hold of my toques, and he's like trying to pull me out. And I've kind of rolled over now, and he's got me now by the jersey. And I remember, like, I'm just like, my whole team is coming, like kind of blocked him off, and he's still got like the alligator grip on my jersey. And I'm just like hammering his hand to try to get his alligator grip off me. And they finally get it done. And then like the period ends and we go into our locker room, and there was like he didn't get a penalty, but they gave one of our guys and one of their guys a penalty, and it was a 4-on-4 the next period. My coach starts me as a 4-on-4. He's out there as well. I'm a D-man. He's a forward. I have to go line up next to him on the draw the next period. And I am shitting my pants. This guy's got like 300 PIMs this year. He's one of the toughest guys in the league.
True heavyweight.
Yeah. And I mean, I wasn't afraid to like drop the gloves, and I wasn't a heavyweight, but I wasn't like a fighter, but I played tough. And he just looked at me, and I'm like, oh boy, here it goes. What's up? He just looked at me and goes, hey man, sorry, I lost it there. I thought that was a really good hit, but sorry, gets a little excited. And I mean, like this, I was like, oh my God. Like,
he diffused it. He diffused the situation.
I mean, I was so, and I'm like, because I remember I was looking at my other, it's 2-on-2 or 4-on-4, and we got our 2 forwards, 2D, and I looked at my other D. I'm like, you go line up there. He's like, no, you. So, oh, thanks. Yeah, spasiba. Thanks, buddy, in Russian. It's spasiba. And that D-man that I was actually playing with was Dmitry Orlov, who was at the Washington Capitals for a while. But he was just a young pup. He was like 18 years old when I was there. But, awesome guy. We went out, after the game. Most of the North Americans would always kind of hang out after the game and stuff. And like, just a genuine person. He certainly had his demons, and, with all the things that he went through with concussions and stuff, it's heartbreaking.
Yes.
I saw that come through the news wire, and, my wife asked me, how did it happen? I said, I haven't even looked. I don't care to know, but it's like, oh, so tragic, but a fun guy. And, I tell you what, it's the most scared I ever been in my entire life, for sure. Head first into the bench.
Where's the video of that?
Where's the live barn of that KHL game?
You got Kowalska in the Polish sleep.
There is a good video of, I fought Sergei Fedorov's brother, Fedor Fedorov. Now Sergei's like 6 foot, pretty thick, 200. His brother is like 6'3", 6'4" mutant with like long Gumby-like arms. And I made a pass, and he like butt ended me with his stick right in my ear hole, which hurts a lot. And I turned around and I was like, hey, what are you doing? And then he cross-checked me in the face. I was like, okay, game on, let's go. Like, and he was one of the heavyweights. And like I said, I wasn't afraid to drop the gloves, but I wasn't like running around. I kind of wanted to get points, because you get all my bonuses were for points, not fights.
Yeah.
So I would have preferred, but you can only take so much, and hey, you're better to get beat up and stand up for yourself than just keep taking it. So we used to say, hey, take it now, take it all year. So, I dropped the gloves. I said, let's go. Let's take your helmet off, because I don't want to break my hand on off your helmet. So we squared up, and his reach was significantly longer than I was prepared for. And he just started throwing some bombs, like just haymakers. And I'm thinking, like, I put new laces in my skates because I knew it was a TV game. You want to look good on TV. And I thought I was going to get one punched on the way in and just get knocked out. And I mean, I couldn't even get a hold of the guy because his reach was so long. And I took a couple on the way in, and I was like, all right, I'm a pretty strong guy. If I can get a hold of this guy, I think I got a chance. I took a couple on the way in, and he was so strong. He pulled me and ripped my fighting strap right off the back of my pants. And for people that don't know, the fighting strap is a strap that you hook onto the back of your breezers, your hockey pants, that holds your jersey down so your jersey doesn't come over your head. That thing ripped right off. And then I just, what's called seat belting in hockey, you just take two hands, grab their jerseys and like cross it, and it tends to tie them up pretty well. And I just seat belted him, and then I turtled up because otherwise the pain was coming. But you can find that long story gets to, you can find that video if you search Nick Angell, Fedor Fedorov. Yeah, he beats the wheels off me on that one. I didn't win that fight at all, but
you stuck out pro hockey for a long time. Sean Goldsworthy, who was the St. Olaf coach when I went there, he's now at Minnetonka. He, when he was at St. Olaf, taught part of a coaching class that they did. All the head coaches at St. Olaf would do like a 2-week, prepare students when they graduate how to be a coach. And one of his stories, his first day was like, college sports are great. Pro sports are entirely different. He remembers one of his first pro games, like a line brawl broke out, and he didn't really know what was going on. So he didn't match up with anybody. And so because of that, he got like the biggest, toughest guy on the other team who just pounded him. And Goldie's like, it was at that moment that I realized, this pro hockey was just going to be an experience for a year. And I'm not going to keep doing this. And he's like, for the rest of this year, every time I'm on the ice, I'm going to be cognizant of who else is out here in case a brawl breaks out. I got to know who I'm going to match up with and who I'm going to grab, because you just do not want to get like that 6'4" Gumby. I mean, gotcha, because it's not going to be fun.
Yeah, and I mean, like as a college guy, you kind of don't really understand how the world works because you got a bunch of like 5'6" tough guys running around, and as soon as you punch somebody, the refs get in right there, and then they kind of just beak all the time. It's like, oh, hey, once you take that bird cage off, it's going to be a big difference. And when I left the U, I had a tryout with the Nashville Predators, and I was in the Milwaukee Admirals. And they kind of liked what they were seeing. I think I was kind of like an unknown to them. And they asked me, like, hey, would you fight? And I was like, oh, yeah, I don't really know how, but I didn't play juniors. I came right out of high school, went to college. So I had no real experience with that, except maybe on like the 6th grade, playground, at recess, but like I'd never really been into a fight. And so we were scrimmaging a team. I think it was the Chicago Wolves, so the Chicago Blackhawks farm team at the time. And I asked one of the veteran guys in the AHL, I was like, okay, like who's the tough guy there? Because they wanted to see me fight. And I was like, oh yeah, it's this guy here. First shift, I run right up to him, right in front of their bench, just cross-check him as hard as I could, just drop the gloves, like, let's go. And he looked at me, and I was wearing like number 51, like whatever random number they assigned me. He kind of looked at me and he goes, hey kid, you got to earn it. Then he just skated away. So then I had to like go pick up all my shit right next to their bench. And the guys were just beating me like crazy. So yeah, that was not a win, but you kind of figure it out once you get there. But I will say, hey, one of the best fights I've seen all year was the Arizona State kid that I think he's a Wayzata kid.
Oh, and the Alaska kid.
Yeah, I think they came out of the penalty box and let her rip. Like that was a pretty good tilt.
Did they both get booted from their teams or something like that too?
I think
they
so.
Both did.
Yeah, but it was a good tilt. Like
those guys are like, well, I'm done with college hockey. I might as well show my wares to the pros.
What do you guys think of the NIL and this transfer portal thing?
I'll go first. I think the NIL, as it was intended to be legislated, is good. Like Logan Cooley, Matthew Nyes, they're elite players in college hockey. If CCM wants to sponsor them, if Chipotle wants to sponsor them, have at it. they've earned it. They've got the name recognition, they're high picks. Why make them wait until they turn professional to get some of that benefit? But the enticement stuff that's happening, like we're seeing at Michigan State, we're seeing at some of the schools out east, I don't like that part of it because those players haven't really earned anything. They're getting enticed to go to a school for that money, and they haven't done anything to deserve it yet. So I think that part's hard. The portal, I mean, if you're not in a spot where you're happy, I feel like you should get a chance to go somewhere. I don't know if it should be as free as it is, and as so many advisors and agents get involved in players' lives, I feel like that's manipulating it more than it needs to happen. But I think it's made college hockey a deeper, better game right now. Like there are more players ready to play college hockey now than probably at any point in history. Like the American game is so strong. There's so many players. There's some turnover. It's tough for the guys at the bottom of the roster who, are trying to hang on and maybe aren't. That part's complicated. And I think for some guys, going through the hard times and figuring it out is more beneficial than transferring. Because I think what you're seeing is every once in a while there's a kid who transfers because he's not having a good time and he goes to the next place. It doesn't change. Yeah. And then he's stuck there at his second choice or whatever, and it isn't going to advance in hockey. And they might find a way to, take away his roster spot, honor his scholarship that he got, or maybe take it away or reduce it. And it's tough for them too.
All right, I turned the audio off on them, but let's just look at that.
Yeah, so I'm trying to get in here, and I think
he's just kind of holding on to you there.
Yeah, well, you missed the first part. They kind of caught it towards the end, so I think on this video clip it'll kind of like rewind here a little bit, and they'll actually show as the clip moves forward, they'll kind of show the replay of it and how it kind of all started. But yeah, that's Fedorov in Russian, in Cyrillic, and that's Angell in Cyrillic. So I make the pass, he comes and he just, looks like we froze up a little bit.
Yeah, sorry, my internet's not that great.
You missed that. Yeah, and then he cross-checked me in his face, and I'm like, all right, get your helmet off, let's go. And you can see I'm 6'1", 220, and he's way bigger than me. And he's just throwing haymakers. I can't even get in on him.
That's some reach.
And then, so I took took a couple on the way in here. Holy Christ, this guy has got go-go gadget arms. I'm reaching, trying to get a hold of his jersey. And I was like, I can't even get a hold of this guy. And then you can see on the back of my pants, that the fighting strap's just hanging there and the jersey's coming off. And I'm like, oh, that's not good. So you can see that fighting strap just hanging there. So that was not a win for the team there.
Nick, I had a philosophy prof at St. Olaf who was also a boxing coach. And he's like, you don't ever want your hands up here because then you can't see and it's hard to punch. You want them here and you want to be able to close the door this way.
I mean, in hockey, it's God, you want to get a hold of the jersey. And I'm like, Christ, I can't even get a hold of this guy's jersey. We're literally boxing right now.
Wax on.
Wax on, wax off.
Paint the
Keep
fence.
your eyes open.
Up, down.
Paint the fence. But yeah, no, I agree with you on that NIL thing. I look at it as listen, I saw some of these guys that played basketball and football. And, I won't use their names, but one of these guys just wore Scooby-Doo and Snoopy, sweatpants all the time. And finally I asked him, I was like, yo, what's up with the Scooby-Doo and Snoopy, apparel? And he said, well, my mom works at Disney or Epcot. And, this is just kind of what I can get. He didn't have any other clothes. Right. And you think about what you get for a full scholarship, that's your room, your board, your tuition. But what about pens and papers? And, now it's iPads. But before it was let's say we had a class project and you had to buy some poster board and, do whatever.
Yeah.
They have nothing. One of the guys was a football guy. He went on to the NFL. I won't use his name, but he would do backflips and he was a big boy, 6'5", 250. He would do backflips outside of one of the local bars on campus for like $5 or $10 just to make some extra money. Like I don't know how you work it, like, you know, with these guys. And I've tried to think of like NIL, like, you know, do you just say, hey, you can collect all this NIL money and the day you graduate, we'll put it in a trust, and the day you graduate, you get the money. But then guys would take they take out loans on their future income.
Ooh,
you know,
yeah.
like there's ways to kind of like, I think the NCAA did it for all the right reasons. But I think it's kind of getting wild and crazy. And it's the same thing with the transfer portal. And you combine both of those together, it's kind of a lethal combo. Like they did it for that one guy that wasn't happy, that, you know, like really just wasn't a good fit with the team or had some sort of issues, you know, and he was stuck for 4 years. He or she was stuck for 4 years. So they wanted to open that up. But what I think has happened now is like, you know, you've got kids that you committed to, and let's say they don't do that well. A coach does not have to be loyal to that player anymore. He can just say, hey, listen, we're going to honor your scholarship, but you're never going to play another game for us. And, you know, I'm guessing you probably want to continue your career. So you should probably hit the portal. So they can kind of force players out, you know, versus like honoring that, you know, and then you have the NIL money coming in. It's something that we talk about as in our alumni association of like, hey, I think NIL and portal together, I get why they did it. It's kind of just a crazy thing that's happening, but you know, we probably need as alumni to start getting together and figuring out how do we raise NIL dollars for Dinkytown athletes. Because, you know, at the University of Minnesota, we're probably one of the few programs that can raise money. And hey, there's 18 full scholarships, I think, in NCAA hockey. When I played, maybe it's changed now, it's 21. I have no idea. But when I played, it was 18, you know, and we have 27 guys on the team. And let's say it's, you know, so, you know, there's 8 or 9 scholarships that are not funded, 900% across let's say it's 30 grand. So it should be 270 grand. There's no reason that as alumni, as supporters, as fans, that we shouldn't be able to come up with the extra 270 grand as a state and as a community and say every one of those kids gets a full scholarship, whether it's academic or NIL. Like, I think that's like a great aspirational goal, you know, and then you just give the money to Dinkytown athletes, and you can actually say like, no, we want to go to the hockey team, you know, and then, you know, I think you could probably talk to Bob, and we've talked to Bob. We said, hey, this is something we're thinking about. You know, we would like to at least have everybody get a full scholarship before we start saying, hey, we're going to give you a full ride and a, you know, X amount of money on top of it. Right. Because we want, you know, there's pride in ownership and there's pride of donation to say, listen, I contributed to every one of those kids getting a full scholarship and leaving college without debt, versus saying, yeah, I know that kid's a super stud and I gave him, and, you know, now he gets an extra 10 grand or 50 grand or 100 grand or whatever it is. I don't think there's as much pride in that, but I think there's some pride and ownership as fans and as a community to say every one of those kids gets a full scholarship, either athletically or through NIL donations. I think that's something that we should set a goal for our community.
And you're starting to see that, especially across college football with walk-ons.
Oh, yeah.
The NIL is making up for that and saying you might not be part of the 85, but the NIL group, if you're a contributing walk-on, we are going to pay for your school. Yeah. And the NIL group is coming forward and paying for that. And I think that's part of what this is intended to do, is allow people to make up for that gap of what the rules are. And I mean, we'll see what happens, but I know Derek Burns, who's doing a lot of the Dinkytown athletes groundwork.
Yeah, we've chatted with him.
Yeah, he's really trying to do what's feasible. And he says, you know, if you just have your fans who follow the team, you know, sign up for those $10 a month membership opportunities, that allows them to have $1 million for a team.
Yeah. And Jupe and we chatted, and I said, you know, we used to have the Mariucci Open where, you know, we have our Gopher Hockey Alumni golf thing, and that's just kind of for the alums, and we just, you know, have a couple drinks and have some fun. But like for the alumni, or for the Mariucci Open, why don't we do that again this year? And, you know, let's say it's $500 or $1,000 a foursome, which is not an incredible amount, but we do that and we say, hey, we're going to get 30 of the most known Gopher players, whether that's your Bonnens or your Crowleys or your Crafts or Leopolds, and they'll be one of your golfers with you. And, we take that money and we donate it to Dinkytown athletes. Maybe we make 50, 60 grand. I think that would just be a good start and some pride of ownership for the fans, for the alumni to be involved, and try to get it to be back to being more of like a community game. Like I loved the, the slogan, like Minnesota's pride on ice. We don't hear that as much anymore, when we went away from like all Minnesota guys, which personally, I love that we're a majority Minnesota, but hey, if we got to recruit a guy every once in a while, I mean, you can't disagree that Grant Patolny didn't score the game-winning goal in the national championship, and he wasn't from Minnesota. So, if it takes a couple guys like Grant, I'm all for it. Like, I love that we're a majority Minnesota guys, but, and it's like, if they're the same player, it's like fighting Muhammad Ali. The Minnesota guy is going to win, like on a TKO. But if you've got some great, standout players that can help the team, hey, let's bring those guys in.
I definitely think the staff has changed their perspective on recruiting. Like they're no longer just taking the Minnesota piece as a fit.
Yeah.
You were talking about that. Like, I want to be a Minnesota guy. Minnesota fits. It's got to fit the style and the team on top of that to actually work.
Yeah.
You can't just have a player that's like, I just want to play for Minnesota. That's my thing. It's like, you need some guys like Matthew Nyes and Logan Cooley to come into your program who are just like, yeah, I want Minnesota because they're elite at hockey. They're going to prepare me for the next level. We're going to compete for national championships, and I'm going to get the best, NIL chance, the best training, the best, amenities with charters and nice hotels on the road and all that stuff. You got to find a mix of those two things.
Yeah, and quite frankly, like I've spoken to the coaching staff because of my like connections in Sweden. I played most of my career in Sweden. I speak Swedish and German. As a side note, I took Swedish in college because I grew up speaking some German with some relatives. So German was pretty easy. And then I had some Swedish neighbors, and I could tell they were kind of smack talking me a little bit. It's kind of similar. And I needed to kill off some 5-credit classes. So I took Swedish in college as well. And then I played a majority of my career over there. So, agents and player advisors like call me every once in a while and say, hey, I've got this player. He's not, they just finished up their Swedish junior last year. They're looking to come to play college. They don't want to sign their first pro contract in Sweden. And, I've helped some guys and I've passed some guys to Gordo. And, you try to refer some good players to him here and there. They were obviously always already set with Close, but I helped, bring in a goalie, and I love doing that. It's nothing I get paid for, but it's great to give back to the community. And obviously, hey, Minnesota gets first pick of the guys that I get sent, or that.
So what's the scouting report on Eric Paulson?
I mean, I haven't watched him play that much, to be honest, but his points look very good.
He looks like a player.
I mean, I'm kind of like looking forward to doing like a kind of an alumni presentation to the whole team next year, and maybe I'll bust out a little Swedish for him and surprise him, and say some things to him directly, and everybody else will be like, "What the hell is that guy talking about?" He just started talking gobbledygook, and
get the Swedish chef up there. Hindi,
Nej, men svenska är ganska bra, men vi får se hur det funkar. So. Yeah. But I used to do my Swedish I used to do my interviews in Swedish when I was there, and I think that was kind of like ingratiating. But yeah, I made one like mistake one time. I said it was coming off the rink, and I'd played I think the most of my team, and they had asked me about like my penalty minutes, how I was feeling as I was going into like rest for the third period. I was kind of annoyed because he's just like, man, you just played a ton. You're down 2-1. You just want to get in the locker room and like rest and get ready for the next period. And they grabbed me as I was coming off, throw a headset on me and start quizzing me if I'm tired or not. And it's like, well, yeah, of course I am. Like, and then I had said, I was like, yeah, I have a little bit of lactic acid in my legs, but I had lactic acid and carbonation are like really similar. It's Kosira is carbonation, and milksira is like lactic acid. And I said, like, yeah, I got a little bit of carbonation in my legs. And then I said, as soon as I said it, I changed it. I was like, oh, like the float, I mean, the milksira. Sorry, I mean like lactic acid. And the guy running the interview, the press guy, I'd met him a couple times, and like he just kind of seems like, no, how do you get carbonation in your legs? And this is all in Swedish, and I switched to English, and yeah, how do you get carbonation in your legs? And I said, hey, listen, I switched right to English, and I said in English, yeah, hey, hey Nicholas, we can do this in English. I've heard you speak English, and you fucking suck. So the European newspapers are very like sensational, like everything's like, catastrophic and a bomb and all, like, so like you go to go get gas the next morning, and it said like Angell drops F-bomb on live TV. That was like the highlight right on like the newspaper print, and I was like, no, I'm sorry, like I say the F-bomb every once in a while. So
I remember when the Swedish media sent out a reporter to cover Leon Bristedt, and they did like an expose on the hockey house and what college hockey is like for the student athlete. And they like really focused on like the party scene at the hockey house. And I just remember Brian Deutsch just being like, can't believe this is happening to me.
It was a Swedish reporter?
Swedish reporter who came to the U.S. and did
I gotta look it up. Yeah,
I remember.
Because I spoke with Leon quite a bit, actually. Just with similar backgrounds and like what he was going to do after. Obviously these guys have agents and stuff, and like just giving him my 2 cents is like, hey, I don't get paid like for this at all. Like just, hey, I played in the Swedish Elite League, like here's some of your options. Here's what happens if you play in the US. Here's kind of your like career trajectory. If you do this, if you do that, if you play in the A, or you go to Switzerland, or you try to go to Russia, just try to give him like a little bit of my experience, and then let him make, the best decision for him that works. So
you pulled a Vanek on TV, huh?
Did Vanek swear?
Yeah, because that's what Vanek did on Fox Sports North, his first interview on his first game.
Well, Thomas and I, we speak a little German together because so it's German and Swedish for me are my.
I believe he just, and it was the thing that Mazzacco always told me is that they always pre-recorded that. So they kind of, they would go down to the player, and that was kind of during the commercial break. And, 30 seconds later, it would tape live. And Frank saw it, and he's like, he heard him here. I took the fucking puck and did this and did that, and I scored. And he's like, they played it back, and they didn't get past. I mean, they didn't hear it or something. So not only got past the recording of it, but it got past the replay of it, of him dropping an F-bomb in his first interview. And then for the next 15 years, we never heard a freshman talk in any kind of media situation until the Don left.
Hey, he liked to run
the first month you could not speak to a freshman no matter what.
But you could talk to them before classes started. So Brian Deutsch used to be like, hey, classes are about to start. Do you want to do some interviews with the freshmen before we get going on the season? Because you won't get them for at least a month or two. And so Brian hooked me up that way.
Oh, that's good. But yeah, hey, Vigo, seriously, we gotta get together, and I'll share some KHL stories, and there's some good ones in there. We might have to have like a little bit of a censorship. I don't know how much time we got. If we got time for one.
Yeah, one. Let's do one. Right. Let's do one.
So last. This will be like the first time I ever went to Russia, getting there, and then you tell me if you think like we can write a book about this later. And this is just like day one. So you leave on Monday, you do overnight flight to Amsterdam, you land Tuesday, and then it's Amsterdam to Moscow. So you get in Moscow later in Tuesday night. And then there's two airports in Moscow, Domodedovo and Sheremetyevo, and you have to go from one airport to the other. And it's like, if you've ever watched like the Russian driving YouTube video clips, like it's just crazy, right? Traffic's nuts. There's no street signs. It's the Wild West, So I go from Domodedovo, Sheremetyevo, and I take another overnight flight to Siberian Russia, where I'm playing in Novokuznetsk. We actually called it Novo Dump because it was just a shithole.
Is it over the urinals?
Yeah.
over the urinal.
Yeah. No, I mean, well, once you pass
Nick, do you know that line? Do you know that line Doug Woog was talking about where the World Juniors were? It was over the urinals.
the
Not the
Ural
Urals,
Mountains.
the
Well,
urinal.
what's weird about the urinals is once you pass the Ural Mountains, you're now in Asia. So there are no urinals and there's no toilets either. It's literally like a hole in the ground with like the two spots where you like put your feet and you do your number 1 or your number 2. And by the way, there's like no toilet paper. So you better have packed it with you. So that's once you get into Siberia and Russia. So we land there. I've left on a Monday. I landed at like 7 a.m. on Wednesday. And the team has sent their like huge team bus to pick me up. And they've got the GM and our team translator, who is like this, like, it's like the oligarch's translator. It's like this supermodel gal that picks us up, and she's doing all the translating. And they're like, okay, how was your flight? Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, I actually got stuck in customs and got thrown in detention because you guys screwed up my visa, because I had to send my passport to the embassy in Washington, D.C. for the Russian embassy to get my visa. And the team said, yeah, he's landing in Novokuznetsk on Wednesday. Well, actually, I landed in Moscow on Tuesday and my visa was for Wednesday. So they put me in like this like holding tank. And I'm like talking to my agent. I was like, hey, Yevgeny, you deal with, I don't speak Russian. And so I wasn't too worried. It wasn't like I did anything wrong. So I sat there for a couple of hours and then magically they let me go. So then I catch my flight, land into Novokuznetsk on Wednesday. They bring me right to the rink. And like the guys are just getting on the rink, and I've got like, I've got my hockey gear that I brought, and like half of the stuff I had a bunch of my like personal stuff and like, shirts and coats and stuff that I just stuffed in my hockey bag because it's a big bag. I'm trying to like find all that stuff, get it all on. I've been up for like 48 hours. It's, 2 days later after I left. They get me on the ice. I'm a little late, no stretching, no nothing, after sitting on 2 overnight flights. Get on the ice. We have a 2-hour practice and it's tough. Like, I mean, Russian training camp is no joke, and just kind of get my ass handed to me out there. And then we get off, and there was another guy on our team, Jeff Ulmer, who played for UND. So he was on the team. He and I both flew in, and we're just like commiserating like how like miserable that we feel. And we get off, we start getting our gear off, and they're like, no, put your workout gear on. And our workout gear is hanging in our stall now. So we get that on, and they say, go run 3 kilometers, almost just shy of like 2 miles. So we're out on the track and we're running, and we're Metallurg Novokuznetsk. So we're the metal factory of Novokuznetsk. So we are literally just sponsored by this oligarch that's making these old T-72 tanks that are getting blown up in Ukraine right now. It's wild. And we can see the smokestacks from this plant. And, I've seen white smoke, gray smoke, black smoke. This thing is orange smoke pumping out of it. Like it looked like pumpkin smoke coming out of this thing. Like that can't be healthy. And as we're running, you can taste the pollution from this smoke coming out.
So like a metallic taste?
Yeah. It was so weird. Like you could taste it, right? And so we run by, and like Dmitry Orlov, the young kid that was drafted by the Capitals, we kind of jogged by, and he could hear us talking about like, what the hell is, and he just goes, taste money. That was, that's who pays our bills, right? That's who pays our salary. It was the metal factory. So then we go in and we run and I mean, we're just exhausted. It's like, I don't even know what planet I'm on. I'm in Siberia, Russia, running around, 2-hour practice, not sleeping for 2 days. So we go, and I go shower. They haven't turned the hot water on in the arena. So it's a cold shower. Like, welcome to Russia, bitch. Wow. So then we go in there, and we had 3 goalies at camp. 2 were on our team, and then 1 guy was getting ready because he was going to go to an NHL camp. He signed a tryout contract. So we go back to like our area where we change into our like civilian clothes after the shower, and I just got like a towel wrapped around me, and that goalie is waiting there with the supermodel team translator. And everybody, I'm kind of like waiting for her to leave, you know, and everybody else is just, you know, getting down and getting dressed. So I was like, all right, well, whatever. And he's asking me questions like, what's it like, you know, in the US? How do I get a cell phone? What's training camp like? You know, like all these just different questions, right? Because he's leaving in like 2 days. And he's wearing like these white, like bright white man capris, you know, that were just above the knee with like some like kind of Birkenstock sandals. And I'm trying to paint the picture here. Tight. I mean, like medium tight pink shirt, deep V-neck with like all the gold, like Russian gold, you know, like gold cross, gold bracelets. Just he's like golded out. Like he had like the Mr. T starter set going. You know, no sleeve, like sleeveless, tight pink, deep V-neck, tight shirt. I can't tell you how it was ridiculous. Like you could see the chest hair through the shirt, like not
compression, like a compression shirt.
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
And he asked me, he goes, you got any like tips for me? It was the kind of conversations like winding down. I was like, yeah, dude, you're coming in, you're going to be a European. Like whatever you do, don't wear that outfit. And the most important thing is you need to lose that little Louis Vuitton man purse that you're rocking cross satchel body on you for sure. Like don't wear that Louis Vuitton man purse, whatever you do. Like the boys will just eat you up, you know. And then the supermodel, she's translating that, and I was like, hey, what was your name again? You know, we just met. Like, you know, you meet like 30 new guys, and then he's like, oh, you know, you can just call me Bob. That goalie was Sergei Bobrovsky. Like, so I literally told Sergei Bobrovsky to not wear like that European man purse to the locker room. So that was literally day one for me, or day three.
Oh, yeah, 3 days in day one.
The story, but
like, what were you told going into that adventure? Like, what did your agent tell you it was going to be like, and how did he prepare you?
They sent me the contract, and it was like 20 pages, all in Cyrillic Russian, not an English contract. I was like, what the hell am I signing? And they were like, no. They changed the rules a little bit of like, you couldn't, because like all contracts had to be in rubles, because like teams were getting crushed when like the dollar would shoot up and down. So they said, okay, I'll have to be in Russian, because they would send all these in, but then they would do a translation. So I had to pay like $500 to get the contract translated. I had a Swedish agent and an American agent and a Russian agent, and they all kind of worked together. So the Russian guy was telling me kind of like the Cliff Notes version of what was in the contract. But they just said, they're like, yeah, come in shape. You're going to get your ass handed to you. It's going to be Soviet style coaching. And it was like, and you know, like we had to go to Baza, which is base camp. So like home games, the night before the game, you had to go to like this team owned dormitory where like, cause you know, Big Brother's watching. It's not like, they don't treat you like a professional. They treat you like you're a fool and a clown, and they don't trust guys not to go out the night before and, you know, get all banged up before they
get carbonation in their legs.
Yeah, exactly. Get that carbonation going, you know? And so, and I had the advantage that like I'd played in Europe a ton before, never in Russia, but you know, and I tell guys when they go over, I say, listen, you know, we're raised in the US, and, you know, we think like the US is best and we always know what's right. I say, just because it's different doesn't mean it's wrong. It's just different, right? So be open to like trying some different things. So I was pretty open, you know, and after being in Europe that long, you know, there wasn't much that surprised me until I went to Europe, or until I went to Russia. Then like it baffled me, some of the stuff they did. I mean, our goalie was like still like a smoker, like not like has a couple drinks and would have a cigarette. Like the coach wouldn't let him smoke in the locker room. So he'd have to go into the shower room, put his skate guards on, and he would walk into the shower room, and he'd like be hanging half in the shower room and half out. And he'd kind of like jump back and like, and then he'd like stick his head back into like the locker room and listen to like the chat, you know? So it was I just knew that I was going to make a lot of money, and I didn't really know what the hell I was getting into. And I went there for the money. And I was the first American, I think, to ever captain a KHL team, which was kind of a cool honor, like really a big honor, because I'm not giving rah-rah speeches. I don't speak Russian, but they knew what I was kind of like putting out on the ice. And you go there for that money and you realize it's not worth it. You need to have friends and family and, have a place to go eat and go grab a beer and have a coffee. And, the coolest thing was, though, I did get traded at the end of the year because there's no promotion and relegation, right? Like, so the worst teams, the bottom teams, we were one of the bottom teams, they sell their best players to the top teams. And my contract was such that like this team knew they weren't going to be that good. So they wrote in like just ridiculous bonuses. Like, hey, you finish in first place, you're going to get X amount, you're going to get 150,000. And then every round you win, you're going to get another 100,000. Because they were like, well, we're not going to hit that. Well, they traded me to the best team before the year ended. So now all those bonuses were hitting. It was awesome. And I got to play with, I went from Metallurg Novokuznetsk to Avangard Omsk, which I got to play with Jaromir Jagr, which was the coolest damn thing ever. He sat right next to me in the locker room. And I remember I'm meeting him and he's like, hey, my name's Jags. And I was like, yeah, man, I know who you are.
I know who you are.
Like he's giving me his phone number and I'm typing in like Jaromir Jagr into my phone. And all I'm thinking is like, I got this dude's 1990 Upper Deck rookie card at my parents' house in my little kid bed, next to my Bo Jackson poster. Like it was awesome to play with that guy. And I've got stories galore about him.
Well, and to see him skate out for his retirement thing.
Yeah.
That was so, and all the players had all these, the mullets going, and to see him come out with the Penguins for warm-ups a couple weeks ago.
Oh, it was
spectacular.
It was great. Like it was such a privilege to play with that guy and see the preparation that he does. And, as I went to that team, you go and you introduce yourself to everybody, and these guys are mostly Russian. They don't speak English. So I picked up enough Russian to kind of get by. And then there was a couple Czech guys there and like, you could kind of get some English with them. And then one guy's like, hey, yo, my name's Joe. Hey, nice to meet you. Hey, like super Canadian accent. And I'm looking at the roster. I was like, Joe, hey, where are you from? I didn't see on the roster. He's like, oh, I'm from Windsor, eh? It's like, oh, what the hell are you doing here? I didn't see on the roster. He goes, oh, I'm with Jags. So he was the equipment manager for the Canadian national team. And I think it was when he met them in the Olympics and Joe was sharpening all the skates for the Canadian national team. And Jags is like a perfectionist with his skates, right? Like he shows up to the rink like 5 hours early and he's checking out all these things and, everything, right? And he liked the way Joe sharpened skates. And he paid Joe $100,000, said, I will just give you $100,000 and you just come with me to Russia. So he literally paid this guy $100,000 to sharpen
just for skates.
Like it was, yeah, like, yeah, Joe is, yeah. And like they gave him and the equipment manager for our team was kind of pissed about it, right? Because it was what's wrong with
taking away his work? Yeah.
Yeah, there was kind of like a weird dynamic that was going on amongst those. But then like playoffs playing with that team, we would have pregame skate and then we'd have to go to Baza and have like a team nap together, like at the dormitory. It's so weird.
Is it like boot camp, like where it's just like bunk 100%. Beds after bunk beds?
Yeah, it's bunked up. You're bunked up, and like there's dudes talking to their wives, and it's like, man, can you shut up? I'm trying to get a nap. So we have like pregame skate, then we go to Baza, have our dinner, and take a pregame nap, and then you get up and you have like a little snack, and then you go to the rink, and there, it's like an NHL locker room. It's very nice, and I go back there, and I'm like, man, I was like, Jagr was sitting right next to me. I was like, Jag's like, is your gear wet? He goes, yeah. Mine too. And he's all excited about it. I was like, did they not turn the fans on? He's like, no, I had the priest come in, with like the swing and smoke thing. And he's like, yeah, I had him throw holy water on all of our stuff before playoffs. Like What do you say when Yarmer Yager is having holy water thrown? You just say thanks, like, hey, oh, thanks, man. That's awesome. Like thanks so much for that.
Do you ever run into Joe Disick at the hockey stuff for the Gophers?
Yeah, from time to time I run into Joe. Yeah.
Because I coached with him for a little bit, and he would have some great Yager stories because like it was early Yager with the Penguins when he first came over, and Joe was there, and he's just like, this kid was just something else.
Well, he doesn't drink, which
right.
Because I got traded to that team, and I met them on the road. So I didn't meet them at their home rink. I met them in Khabarovsk, which is like on the Pacific Ocean. Like it's like way over there, right?
Yeah.
It was weird because like I was only like a 5-hour flight away from that city, only 5 hours. But I had to fly to Moscow like 4 hours and then fly like 8 hours the other way. It's like if we were in Chicago and there was no Chicago to New York flight, I had to go Chicago to LA and then LA to New York to meet the team. And we went out, and then so we played the games there, and then we came back to Omsk, and they put me up in a hotel, but Yag was like, no, man, come out with me. And like he took me to this club, and I literally have like my like roller bag that I'm bringing into this club. Like, you know how you check your coat at like I checked my like all of my possessions, like 2 roller bags at the club with him. And like I didn't have any like they're kind of a cash society there, and I didn't have any Russian rubles, and there was no ATM because like ATMs are only at the bank because they're like if they're sitting on the street, they're just going to put like a chain around them and like rip them out of the ground. So like I had like no money at this club, and like he is in like the VIP lounge drinking like double espressos, just having a blast till like 6 a.m. And I'm like, man, I flew from Chicago to LA to New York, played 2 games. Now we're back in like like kind of like an Atlanta type geography. And like I just want to get some sleep, man. And like he knew like where I was staying, and I couldn't leave until he drove me there. Like he would crush like double espressos all night, doesn't drink at all. And you guys know why he wears 68, right?
The Czech Revolution.
Yeah. So when they rolled they rolled the tanks into Czech Republic. I asked him, I was like, what's with 68? So yeah, that was the revolution, and they rolled the tanks right into Prague. The Russians did. So he wore that, but he could communicate pretty well in Russian actually. So Czech and Russian is, similar enough that they could kind of get around pretty good. So there's a couple KHL stories. So
I think this is some promising development here. So
yeah, we don't even have to do the book. You could just rewind this tape, I guess.
Well, this is a chapter. We got one done, 20 to go.
One's already done.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we got to call it.
Yeah, it's getting late, man. Thanks for having me on. This was awesome. I had a blast.
Well, we definitely had a blast, and we're gonna have to get you on again sometime. Maybe next season, and we'll get Leopold on with you. Or is that too far past his bedtime?
No, it'll be good. Yeah, we get Leo on, and the guy I'd really like to get on is Johnny Polk, because he needs to step up to the plate a little more. We haven't seen him in such a long time. He never shows up for any of our alumni stuff.
Oh, now you're just calling him
way down.
I mean, do you ever say, well, I've got 2 5-year-olds, and he's just like, well, I got 7. How old are his kids?
No, he'll say like, no, I've got like 40, like 190 18-year-olds, because he's the AD, and it's he's got to go to this game and that game, and they got tryouts, and so he apparently he's really busy. So we kind of razz him.
Plenty of time for the state tournament, though, doesn't he?
Oh yeah.
I see Pat O'Leary at everything. So.
Oh yeah. Well, we were asking him, Johnny, where he got that disgusting suit. Like, I mean, it was like, it was really bad. Really bad suit.
There's no NIL at Hill Murray.
I was shooting a Gopher football game. That must have been about 5 years ago now. Just down. Rovnak got me set up to shoot the game. I went down there, shot the game out. And I go over to student section, take a picture of student section. Didn't think of it at all. Go back, look in the film. Right at the bottom of the student section in the aisle is O'Leary and Peltier waving at me, just smiling like the biggest smile ever.
Patty is a man of the people.
They totally just wanted to go over there and just get the vibe. And what's it like over here? And they just went all the way down the aisle, and students are all around him. And he's like, we're having a good time. I'm like,
the mayor of Wayzata. He's everywhere.
He is. Thanks for being on. This was a blast.
Vigo, thanks. It was awesome. I'm happy to come on anytime. And let me know if you need any alumni. I've got all their contact info, and happy to help.
That would be great. Say goodbye to everybody. Bye, folks.
Bye, guys.
Thanks for being with us.
Go Gophers.